Good gracious, everybody, or potentially happy whatever day of the week it happens to be, come rain or shine. It's episode 114 of the Warhammer 40,000 podcast, known as Look Out Sir. My name is Dan, and when I'm not botching the entrance of this show by calling it an entrance rather than an introduction, I'm introducing my good buddy Phil. Phil, that was atrocious. How are you?
My entrance is perfectly fine, thank you.
Absolutely. You're on point as ever. Whereas, for some reason, I don't really... Again, if it wasn't immediately obvious, we don't script these intros. So, you never quite know which direction or, variant of introduction I'm going to go with. And that was just... I'm going to leave it there, Phil. I'm not going to re-record that. I think that was bad enough that it was good.
Exactly. Yeah, keep it as it was. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like 9th edition, it's bad enough that it's good. It's sick burn. Although I don't think 9th edition's that bad at the moment. I'm not still going to suggest that it's my favourite of all the editions at the moment, but I enjoyed playing it this weekend at the main topic of this week's episode, which is, Phil?
Well, we went to, so both myself, Dan, Tim of Lookout Sir fame, Richie of Quizmaster Lookout Sir fame, all went to the first inaugural Rapid Fire Wargaming event, tournaments. It was
both those things.
Both of those things. And that's the topic at hand that we're going to be talking about. Recounting maybe our games, the overall vibe, what we thought of it. It was open play. It wasn't the Grand Tournament pack. And, did we enjoy that or did we not?
Who could say for sure? Although it was open war, Phil. Although, again, not really open war, but we'll get into that in the episode itself. We'll talk about all the various things that took place there. We might then also talk about something else, depending on how long it takes us to record that particular segment. But we're not really sure what. We're in a really interesting time now where we don't have any real codexes or things to review. So we can actually... Oh, Phil, what?
What was something I mentioned maybe last week? I would like to talk about the multiplayer rules from the latest Crusade pack.
Good gracious. All right, we're going to talk about that as well then. There you go. Well done, Phil. Squeezing in.
If there's time. Only if there's time.
Well, there has to be now, Phil, because you've said it in the introduction. You know how it works. Once you've said it here, it has to happen.
That means I'm going to be up late tonight and tomorrow doing a double recording.
You done did it to yourself. Much like this lovely individual who left us a 5-star review.
Come on now, Timmy. You've got your orders. You've got to do it.
But I don't want to, sir.
You've got your orders. Now get up there, get over that trench, and get me that 5-star review, and get it back here right away.
Okay, sir.
This week's 5-star review comes from where, Phil? Bearing in mind that I told you last week.
No, I know.
I told you exactly where it came from.
I'm going to say Apple Podcasts of America.
Did you actually remember me telling you that, or is that a guess?
It's, 50-50. It's a vague recollection. What happens next week? I've got no idea. I really can't remember.
You can't remember me on there. It's become a complete blur. But
Exactly.
You are, in this instance, correct, Phil. I have to admit, though.
Can we insert some party popper sounds?
All right, okay. Some party popper sounds. Some kind of, crowd cheering.
Exactly, that's what we want. Thank you.
And then, I don't know, insert Timmy from South Park. There we go. Anyway, so this is from Apple Podcasts of the United States of America. I have to admit, Phil, there was a part of me who was going to be taking a review from Facebook just to kind of muck around with you. But then I was like, nah, I can't really,
Maybe. Is that you promising you're going to do it next week and I just have to remember that?
No, I've said the order. The next one is definitely the one I said it was going to be the week before, noting that obviously you can just go back and listen.
Which was?
Little hint. Just go back and listen to the old episode, Phil. Boost our numbers. Give us some extra downloads. But no, this podcast has very gracefully come from the land of the United States of America. And obviously, thank you very much to that individual, Alex from JC. I don't know if JC is a specific part of America, something county maybe, Jackalope County. Is there another kind
Jersey?
of county? Jersey County.
Jersey County. Jersey City?
Jersey County. There you go. Maybe. I mean, there's any number of variables. I'm sure for the American individuals who occupy JC, they are listening to our terrible approximations of where it might be, and potentially plotting to come over here to England, find where we live, and murder us in our sleep, Phil.
I mean, they're more than welcome to.
Please don't say that, Phil. I was watching the other day a show about influencers on Vice, where their young fans come to their house and expect things from them. And don't get me wrong, I'm a lovely fella, but if you come to my house, I ain't going to be pleased.
I mean, no, you can give them a gift of some grey plastic that you're desperate to get rid of.
No.
You can be
No.
the Games Workshop Santa
I won't do
Claus.
anything. I'll call the police. That's about the extent of what I'll do. Although, judging by their relative response time, they're poorly funded. I'll probably be long dead before they rock up. But there we go. Anyway, the point is, Phil, is Alex from JC, when he is not plotting our demise during our restful periods of time, has taken it upon himself to leave a 5-star review. And we thank you for that, Alex. Thank you so much. Obviously, if you would like to be like Alex, a super duper cool person from a place unknown to us, please just leave us a 5-star review in places where you can do that. And we will get around to calling it out at some point in the future. So, to whom it may concern, 5 stars, which is, of course, a prerequisite for the 5-star review. We've had some 1-star reviews. We don't read those. How do we feel about 3-star reviews, Phil? Do we read those?
We don't even acknowledge them.
We don't. That's what I'm saying. It's 5 stars or bust. Anyway, I work in a hospitality industry. Sorry, I thought for a minute my dyslexia wanted to say hospital, but I realized that it became hospitality industry. So there we go. Butchering it from the start. I work in the hospitality industry and have had to work through the entirety of the pandemic. This podcast is something I look forward to on my 45-minute commute to and from work. The rambling nature is quite soothing, and I feel like I am just hanging out with some good old boys, shooting the proverbial shoot. Thank you very much for not choosing to swear. Would recommend and have 5 stars. There you go. Alex from JC there, working in the hospitality industry as opposed to the hospital. Obviously both seemingly resulting in individuals having to work all the way through this rather amusing, or obviously not amusing, pandemic period. Obviously, apologies or sympathies to those that are going out of their way to keep the wheels of the world turning during all of this weird turbulence. I appreciate it probably isn't entertaining for anyone who is having to do all the extra things that go into, making stuff happen during the pandemic. So for that, thank you. And obviously it's great that listening to us during your 45-minute commute makes the whole experience slightly less awful, which is as much as we can hope for. But to expand on that sentiment and maybe more, Phil.
Thank you for your kind, gracious words. We appreciate that you work hard, especially during the pandemic. Those hospitalitied people must truly appreciate the work that you do. I'm glad that we keep your commutes alive and active and well. We at least get in at least 2 journeys per episode. So that's 1 day out of your existence that you don't have to worry about. The rest is up to you. And if you were to go on a flight, come to our houses. I will make sure Dan will give you some grey plastic.
I don't understand how you can assert that is possible. That will not happen. By all means, go to Phil's house in Oxford,
and I will give you, and I will give you Dan's address. So once you've murdered me, you can go and collect some grey plastic from Dan that he's trying to
Please
offload.
Don't. Why are you trying to encourage it, Phil? You're either trying to encourage them killing me or robbing me. I don't understand.
You're always saying you've got too many models, and
I do, but they're mine.
Okay, well, that's your.
They're mine, Phil. They're not for the taking. They're mine, and they will stay in their boxes, beautifully preserved for all time.
Are you going to be like one of those people that have got almost like a museum / shop? Have you seen it where people have collected the old Warhammer stuff and kept it
yes.
completely not open, completely sealed, and they've just sort of recreated like a Games Workshop window display?
Yeah, I've seen those kind of instances, and I'll be honest, I don't necessarily feel like that's what I'm going for. I have to be honest, I do really feel like I should get rid of a lot of it, but weird thing with Warhammer stuff is it doesn't really sort of feel like it's got much of a retail vibe to it. It's like you buy it and it's just a burden that you have to bear because you never make your money back on it. You just sort of lose it after the fact, I suppose.
Unless it goes out of production, which is quite rare for plastic kits.
Yes,
it does
yeah,
happen,
yeah,
but not very often anymore.
No. Maybe if I give it 20 more years, then I'll get all the money I need out of all the Devastator squads I've been buying lately.
Yes.
I don't know why I've been buying Devastator squads a lot lately.
I don't know either.
I just sort of, I see them there and I go, oh, I could do with a Devastator squad. Everyone needs a Devastator squad. Do you want 6 boxes of Devastators? Sure. Like, why not?
You're mad, man.
Could never have too many grav cannons, apparently. There we go. Anyway, look, Alex, thank you so much, buddy. And, hopefully you didn't take offense at our implying that you might be the sort of person who wants to come and murder us. But if you are, start with Phil, and then hopefully word will get to me so as I can flee in ample time. Weird dark intro. Anyway, there you go. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you for those that have considered or maybe bought merch. It's time to get on with the show. Transitional noise. Please don't kill me in my sleep.
Brilliant.
Or not while I'm sleeping. Just don't do it in general. All right. I've said it now. Bye. It's been an awfully long time since we've had the privilege, pleasure, and or whatever it is to collaborate together and have been to an event collaboratively with the greater majority of the Lookout Sir crew. That being, of course, myself, Dan. Obviously, Phil. Hello, Phil.
Hello.
Richie.
Hello.
And Tim.
I'm back, baby.
There he is. You can't see it, but he is rotating in his chair, demonstrating the almighty power of his wireless headset there.
I know, it's a brilliant thing. Everybody should get a wireless headset.
That's true. That's true. Thus, we could, make such extravagant gestures. Obviously, noticeable by his absence is old Joe. He was supposed to come, but as we're discovering is a regular feature of Joe at the moment, he just doesn't turn up to stuff. We were supposed to all be going to Warhammer World this weekend, Joe included. Couldn't be asked. This is the problem with him, you see. He talks a good game, but he's about as reliable as a chocolate teapot.
Well, I think in his defense, when we were going to this event, he had work because they had their own event on.
Oh, yes. Factorum had some event where some lad got in trouble with Steve or something.
Oh, did they? Oh, okay.
Yeah, something about someone getting a yellow card and being disqualified. Ooh. I can't remember. It was all... Oh, mate, all the hubbub. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We actually went to a fun event, one where fun was had, or at least I had fun. What was the event? I will pick on Rich.
The event was I can't remember the actual name of the event. It was just the
brilliant. Well done. I should have.
I was trying to remember if it had a special name. It was the Rapid Fire Wargaming event, wasn't it? There was no.
That was just
it was
just Rapid Fire Wargaming. I don't think it had like any like. I was trying to think. Did it have a subtitle? I don't think.
I think it was just Rapid Fire 1 is what they called it. Or was it Rapid Fire Wargaming 1? Phil, for God's sakes, help us.
Probably Rapid Fire Wargaming 1. Yeah.
I mean, it was such a good event. We didn't even know what it was called. I mean, that's a great sign of the way it went.
And it didn't matter.
I'm checking the event pack.
Are you checking the event pack now? You're finding out the name. This is why we should have got Tom on.
I was right. It was the inaugural Rapid Fire Wargaming event. That's what it was called. The Rapid Fire.
Yeah, but that's not what you said.
What I said something like that.
Okay, fine.
I said Rapid Fire Wargaming.
There we go. But yeah, so we went to the inaugural Rapid Fire Wargaming event. which took place in Kent somewhere. I was there, really. We were all there. I can't remember where there was. Does anyone?
It was basically Faversham.
Basically Faversham.
Faversham, yeah.
Faversham, sorry. Where is Faversham?
Near Ashford in Kent.
Oh, is it near Ashford in Kent?
Mm-hmm.
It was down some windy lanes, is what I know.
The only reason I remember Ashford in Kent is I remember back when I did a lot of driving for work, I would listen to Radio 1, and I think they had a big weekend in Ashford in Kent, and they kept talking about it's in Ashford in Kent, and that's why Ashford in Kent has become, the only part of Kent that I know anything about.
Sorry, my mind went off in a different direction, and I just thought you said when I used to do drive-bys.
Oh yeah, when I used to do drive-bys, yeah, that was a big part of my early career. Absolutely, I was always driving by, not doing anything illegal on the drive-by. No. I just, I don't know.
With finger guns, of course.
Yeah. I imagine that's illegal, though, isn't it? Gesturing to mow down people with finger guns.
Well, you're not in control of your car, so I imagine so.
That's probably true. Exactly.
What if you're a passenger? Can you do the finger guns then?
I think that's fair game. If you're a passenger in a fictitious drive-by shooting scenario, then you're okay. As long as it's clearly demonstrable that you're just using your fingers and that those couldn't at any point be confused for a gun. So don't paint them silver. That would land you in bother.
It really would.
It really would. Have you ever heard those stories of like idiot friends of yours who went into like a town centre with a toy gun and then somehow found themselves in a situation where police response units were sent out to deal with them?
Not any of my friends because they're not on the Darwin table, but I have seen on the internet.
There you go. Well, you're amongst my friends now, so maybe you might find yourself in that situation because friends of mine apparently had done that in the past. Although, again, you never know, do you? Like, people love to boast, don't they? They love to boast. They love to extravagantly spare. There you go. That was words, I swear. Anyway, I just realised I was going to go off on a tangent that didn't need to happen. So we went to Rapid Fire Wargaming, and that was in Kent, near Ashford in Kent, where there was once a Radio 1 big weekend. So I reliably remember. I think that was back in like 2006. So that was a long time ago. Or maybe 2007. Yeah, probably more likely 2007. Anyway, the point is we did that, and we're here to talk about it. I took Dark Angels because that's how I interpret a fun event. Bring the Terminators that you can only win on 4s, although I didn't bring that many of them. Phil, I assume you took your Minotaurs.
Well, a bit like you took your Unnumbered Sons.
Oh! The tennis. You knocked it right back at me.
I mean, I really wanted to. I just pretty much all month I haven't actually had a chance to finish painting my Contemptors. So they stayed at home and I took my Krieg instead. I thought it'd be a good excuse to try out the new balanced datasheet rules, see if 2+ on a Lehman Russ actually is worth it or not.
I suppose we'll discover the answer to that in due course. Richie, what did you bring along?
I brought along my Red Scorpions, led by Carib Culnerisen and his Dreadnought Boys.
His Dreadnought Boys. The fun, fluffy list of many Dreadnoughts.
It was only 5 Dreadnoughts.
Which actually made you one of the, not one of the worst offenders in terms of Dreadnought lists.
No, mine was fairly fluffy compared to what other people bought.
Yeah, I think in Richie's defence, he actually toned it down from what it could have been, which would have probably been, 7 Dreadnoughts.
It would have been 6 Dreadnoughts.
Oh,
but I toned it down to 5.
Well done on your ability to exercise restraint.
You dialed it from an 11 down to a 10.
It's a flexible list. It's got Dreadnoughts, it's got troop choices, it's got fast attack. It's not like I went and said I'm only gonna take Custodes Dreadnoughts and that's gonna be my list. I didn't do that.
No. Although if you did do that, you wouldn't have fared so well because I think that individual only ended up getting 2 wins at the end. Well, no, 1 win maybe. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah. Tim, what did you bring along?
Well, I took a leaf out of Manny's book and took my Tyranids.
Lovely.
How many Hive Guards did you take?
As many as I could fit. No, I only took 6.
Is that as many as you had, though?
Yeah, that was as many as I had and painted. I took maximum Hive Guard.
I can attest though, Tim has been running 6 Hive Guard for as long as he's been playing Nids, as far as I can remember. Notably because they're up until recently not the best thing in the game, but just the best thing in Nids, right?
Yeah, they have been for
pretty
a long
much.
time.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing though, right? And I wanted to talk about it just quickly though. The problem is with the Hive Guard, right, is like they're exploiting a mechanic that Games Workshop seem to frequently realize is broken after the fact, i.e. the squig buggy, the thunderfire cannon, various other things that, you know, maneuver themselves around terrain in order to distribute maximum firepower, such as the variety of flyers that have been plaguing the game since 8th edition. So it is interesting, isn't it, that they take away orc buggies and then there is just another unit in the game that can immediately fill that space. It's almost like they need some kind of overarching design principle to prevent them from coming up with these problems over and over again. Although
let's not go mad.
I know, let's not go crazy. But Tim, how did you feel about being that guy for the weekend? I mean, I imagine people looked at you and went, "Oh God."
I was okay
Nids.
with it. I was okay with it, mate, because you know, everybody worries about coming up against Nids, and what can I say? It's just easy peasy for me. It's just autoplay. All I have to do is roll dice, and that's it.
Nice. Keeping it chill.
Yeah.
So the reason why we are debating the validity of all of our individual lists and the sort of stuff that we brought is because the broad overarching idea of this event was that it was a fluffy, organized play tournament type thing, that the goal of which was to more celebrate the hobby and all of the general kind of fun aspects of it. And as such, they chose to use a amalgamated version of open war missions, which we'll get to after talking through some of the army list decisions that we made and then ultimately other players made. Yeah, the goal was to try and bring things that kind of sat somewhere within the 40k narrative. We had restrictions on our ability to take multiple detachments. We only could take 2 detachments maximum. And there was some restrictions on how you could essentially build that out effectively. But the overarching goal from the organizers' perspective, at least as I interpreted it on the many conversations that I had with Tom, was to try and let people bring fun, fluffy armies, noting that obviously many people can interpret the fluff how they so choose. So someone like Richie, who has decided to bring Cullen and a bunch of dreadnoughts, though that might look like quite a competitive build to some, there is a justifiable kind of fluff behind it. And I do think for the most part, even when players turned up with stuff that you could objectively say was competitive in some way, shape or form, I think they came with the right attitude. And we'll get onto that in a minute in terms of the crop of players that turned up and what it was like to play games with these individuals. But I think generally speaking, I don't think anyone came into that event with an especially win at all costs attitude or armies that they had necessarily expected to stomp people with. I mean, what was your prevailing sentiment, gents? I mean, Tim, we'll start with you. What did you think of the army list selection? Did it feel like there was some filthy stuff amongst the mix, or do you think Tom delivered in keeping the field relatively balanced?
I have mixed feelings about this because the army lists, one of the army lists I came up to, I could see that the effort was put in to keep it nice and fluffy, and there was definitely a theme there, and I appreciate that, and I know you have other opinions, which we'll get to in a minute, but it just so happens that the army itself is actually quite resilient and quite strong, which can have a detriment to my playing experience. Now, is that my fault for not running such a strong army, or is that just an issue of when does fluffy become too OP? Like, how much self-regulating do people have to do? Saying that, the other lists I face were absolutely fine. Like, I felt they were nice and themed, they weren't too over the top, and I had some, all in all, I had some really good games though. So
yeah, it's an interesting perspective. Do you mind telling us which of the free games or what the army list was that you felt like was a bit stronger than some of the others?
It was the Dark Angels list, which was being run as like a sub-faction. I've forgotten which sub-faction it was. He was a lovely guy, but it is facing the Deathwing Terminators and like the Blade Guard vets, and especially with the termies of just like only wounding them on a 4+, and then you throw in transhuman with it as well, and it's
But that is transhuman, only
well,
wounding
sorry,
one of 4+.
sorry, the transhuman stuff. It just, I don't know. It does take away the ability to like remove models. Well, obviously, that's what it's supposed to do. But when you have a weak army, that's just a byproduct of it, you know.
I mean, all credit to the guy who rocked this successor Dark Angels list. I mean, first of all, one of the nicest 40k human beings I've encountered in the hobby, in the sense that definitely in the upper echelon of people, right? I mean, like, the guy was an absolute legend. I really enjoyed chatting to him, and you look like, even though obviously it sounds like you had a tough matchup, that, you know, you got on with him like a house on fire. I mean, you guys were literally tearing the roof off that building with the game you were having. I mean, it was difficult to concentrate with you two going off in the corner.
I mean, it's always difficult with me just in the tournament hall anyway, just because I get so enthusiastic and into it. It's like, oh, I failed a save. Ah! You know, like, why are you happy about that? I don't know.
You're like getting the hotel room next to the recently married couple. That's what it's like trying to play a game against you. it's disastrous. But because look, he seemed like a tremendous guy, and credit where credit's due to his army, right? Though, because I don't think, honest to God, like, my army list was way stronger than what he brought. In terms of the use of the Terminators and some of the other mechanics. I mean, he's got a flipping Sakaran in this army list, right? Like, he's got, Sakarans are broadly pretty rubbish. He's got a bunch of Primaris stuff that no other Dark Angel player would probably bring along. He's got a flipping Deathwing champion, for God's sakes. I mean, no one takes champions. So, I mean, here's the thing, man. I mean, you know, I want to kind of put it out there that although I think this list is strong, because by virtue of the fact that it's good in a matchup against your army, but it's also super resilient, I don't feel like, looking at it, we can suggest that he did anything to try and overly stack the deck. I just think that's just how the rules are currently. He was clearly a Dark Angels fan. He clearly had a really beautifully put together army. Just so happens that Dark Angels are good. So is it necessarily correct that we would suggest that he was try-harding with this list? I don't think that's fair. I just think the problem is it demonstrates, to me at least, a disparity in the rules at the moment, where some things are super powerful and some things are gene stealers.
Yeah, no, agreed, totally agreed. Like, his army was amazing, and he was a really nice guy to play against. We had a wonderful time. It was a magical 40k moment. But as you say,
you just wish you could have wounded him on freeze now and again.
Yes. I just wish I could have done damage, or maybe I should just be a better player and just roll 6s. But the point is that I feel like it does highlight that some armies have a slight advantage over other armies, and he wasn't leaning into that. He wasn't trying to build, like, you know, let's say a very competitive list. It's just that was just what I received or what I felt.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is that you've got more frustration with the innate, you know, the native imbalance of the way the game is presently, as opposed to your frustration with, because I don't think this guy, you know, I look at this list and I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and I think he was absolutely, you know, bringing something that was, I mean, it's got teeth, but it doesn't strike me as being super optimized within the realm of competitive play. I mean, if he rocked up to his average, you know, GT event with tryhard players, he'd probably lose the majority of matches, although maybe not. I mean, he seemed like a really switched on player, but the point is that, you know, you wouldn't see this on, you know, Tabletop Titans, or maybe Tabletop Titans run relatively nice lists here and there. You wouldn't see this on, like, super duper tryhard channel going, hey, this is the meta.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, he's got Cypher in the list, for goodness sake. I mean, I just noticed that. I mean, did he actually run Cypher, or did he just...
No, it wasn't Cypher. It was a substitute for something else, I believe.
A substitute cipher.
I think that was his objective markers, wasn't it? I think because I asked him about that is because
That's
Yeah.
cool.
he's got fallen angel models to represent his objectives.
Yeah,
That is
Nice.
I mean,
It is
credit where
cool.
credit's due. That's actually really cool,
he put a lot of love into it.
mate. You can see it, man. I mean, Garfield's put up, or Tom, sorry, has put up a low res photo of it on Facebook that I'm looking at currently. But even through that, it looks pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
But there you go, man. Well, no, that's good. Good vibes. Phil, what did you think of the quality of competition? I mean, you were the boogeyman for a while, mate. You were smashing people.
Only my first game.
It's so modest. You were top of the ladder for a while.
Well, yeah, we're getting onto that, I guess. But yeah, no, I thought it was a good all-round mix of people. I mean, people did travel quite far. There was people from southwest of England, like 3 hours drive. Quite a few people came down from Nottingham. Toke and his mate Michael came over from Denmark, like literally just for this event. Like they got in at like 3 a.m. to the hotel on Saturday morning and then flew out on Sunday evening. So that's commitment, and they really enjoyed themselves. And there were a lot of people there that had been to No Retreat, so I'd recognised a lot of people that I'd spoken to before and stuff, or at least seen in passing at the events, because you don't always get to socialise with everyone. And I think the general vibe of people, I think there's probably like two sort of tiers of players. They're the ones that are probably really good and were taking toned down lists that were sort of reasonably narrative driven. Some of them were still good. There was maybe one or two that were perhaps edging over into slightly too competitive for the general vibe of the event, which is something, I think that's one downside of events like this, is you can't really gauge the room, so to speak, like the temperature of how good lists are until you rock up on the day and see everyone else's armies, and then you go, oh yeah, mine's a bit too much, or oh yeah, mine's not good enough. So I think that's something that hopefully as the events go along, people will see photos from previous events, so they know like, oh cool, this is like a narrative thing. I can take weak lists and still do well with them. And I think there was a couple of other people that were much more like super casual gamers that took really thematic armies. Like my first game was against a guy who had this gorgeous squat army that had been beautifully converted up from like mostly old squat models. A couple of like converted pieces, like a 3D printed fly based on the old epic squat fly, and he was running them as orcs. That was his third game of 9th edition.
Wow.
So yeah, I tabled him on turn 4, and I felt super bad about it. But at the same time, it was like a combination of me going first, having really good dice rolls, him doing some poor positioning potentially, and that was it really. And it was, I guess, just a bad matchup in terms of he had a fair amount of vehicles and buggies and stuff, and I had an awful lot of anti-tank. So it's like you couldn't really do much to stop it. I mean, if he'd gone first, it might have swung a different way. But the great thing about those games, like in every single one that I had, it was like neck and neck on points, at least to turn 3. And then it was only really turn 4 and 5 which sort of swung it in one direction or another to decide the winner. But overall, I thought all the armies were, I mean, some of them are just absolutely gorgeous, like in terms of like the painting and conversion quality that we had on display.
I mean, that is definitely worth mentioning, isn't it? That the overarching kind of quality of some of these armies that came along was just, pretty stunning. And again, it's such a refreshing sight to be at an event where there are a great many kind of, people who really prioritize the hobby aspect of it as much as the gaming aspect of it. And, to have brought along, say, my Dark Angel army, which I had commissioned painted by Phil from Rapid Fire Wargaming, to bring that along and to be amongst the kind of quality of armies that I faced up against. I mean, the fact that I've got this beautifully painted commission army and I'm looking across at my opponents thinking, cool, blimey, they look absolutely gorgeous, better than what I've got here, which is, an amazing sort of testament to the quality of the armies that were on display. And I think in a way I'm really glad that I commissioned this Dark Angel army, because I would have felt quite silly bringing along something else. Although credit where credit's due, some of the stuff I've gotten off of Joe over the years has also been really beautiful. But yeah, I think just gorgeous looking armies. But yeah, no, good vibes. Rich, how was your general take on the quality of competition?
I thought it was really, really good. I played. There's a nice selection of different armies there that you don't normally see, at least from my experience recently.
I mean, you played too many squat armies in your time?
I've never played any squat armies in my time. I do have an old squat metal model somewhere, I even have some chaos squats somewhere, but that's another story. Who did I play? I played against Phil from Rapid Fire Wargaming and his Tyranids, which were gorgeous. They've got this like kind of like, what's the word to describe it? It's like kind of like
two-tone or color shift.
It's like a two-tone chromatic, so it's part pink, part cyan. They just look absolutely gorgeous, and I don't normally get to play against Tyranids, especially not when he was rocking this giant thing, begin with a D. How do you pronounce it, Tim?
Sorry, say that again.
It's the
Democarian.
There you go.
The
Democarian.
The Democarian. Sorry.
Giant, great, big monster thing, which is really cool just to see. Like, I've never seen that before in the flesh, as it's bounding across the table, trying to destroy all my dreadnoughts. Which it did for a little bit, which was great fun. But it was, and then I played Grey Knights I played 2 Grey Knight armies, which was like, I was like, Grey Knights twice, okay. But I learned a lot about Grey Knights, and they are annoying, but also fun to play against. And different to play against. So it was different kind of experiences. But I love all the armies were great. They all looked great. They all looked different. I don't know if if the plan was to talk about this at a later point, but I loved all the tables that they had.
That's worth mentioning. Yeah,
for the whole experience was like, everyone had really cool armies, and then the tables were really varied. The table had a different theme with a mat and like some nice thematic terrain. So it really felt like you were fighting over something different every game you played. And especially my last game, I got to play against Michael Tokstrand from Denmark, who had some beautiful Grey Knights, and the kind of ruined cityscape we fought over was really thematic, and the missions also helped with that as well. Because we were talking about like, is a list too kind of try hard? Is it too good? Is it too competitive? And I think even if you brought a super competitive list to this event, you'd only be competitive in the sense if you're trying to table your opponent, I guess. If you're trying to table your opponent, then that would help. Then that's always going to be good, whatever kind of mission you're playing. But the missions where you had, what was really cool about them was they weren't like the standard GT missions. That you play, each one was slightly different, had a different kind of deployment zones and different, because there were no secondaries other than harking back to the secondaries of old. First Strike, Slay the Warlord, and Linebreaker. Each mission's primaries were scored in very different and interesting ways, which meant every game was really different, and that I found really, really enjoyable. That as the day went on, no game was the same. It wasn't just playing the same game against a different army. It was a completely different mission against a completely different army on a completely different board. So there's just so much going. It was just like so much variety that was really awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's worth stating that we're not necessarily the biggest advocates for the grand tournament format of 40k, although we do play a good amount of it. I definitely agree with Richie that the variety of games that this format offered us was definitely more interesting game to game. And again, it wasn't even that every game was just get on the objectives. It was like game one, there was an objective in the middle that was worth more than the objective in your deployment zone, which was worth less than the objective in your opponent's deployment zone. But mission 2, you scored a point per player turn, or not player turn, per battle round for the player who got the most kills, as well as was sitting on the most objectives. So that introduced that element into it. And it was cool, especially with the boards as well, which I guess we can talk about maybe a little bit more in a moment. But for what it's worth, on my thoughts on the kind of, people and players and armies that were on display, I genuinely think that, when it comes to these sorts of events. I think you have to accept from the outset that even with the best of intentions, someone is always going to interpret an army list that is broadly fluffy as being stronger than others. And I think that's just a failure of Games Workshop from a game design perspective. I think the idea of balance is utterly, benign in the sense of 40k. That 40k is not balanced, nor can it be balanced based on everything that has to go into it. And I think the problem is that if you don't let players take some fun, powerful stuff, well, then the game just becomes a real drag, right? I mean, I'm sure, Tim, for example, some people looked at 6 Hive Guard and went, oh, God, you just can't necessarily assert what is and isn't fair in this context. They've paid the points cost. Everything is as it should be. And based on that scenario, you have to just kind of accept that some people are going to have slight advantages over others. And you just got to kind of roll with those punches. So I don't mind if someone brings something that is powerful, because I would want them to bring something that's powerful. I just think, again, it's about balance. And I think most people demonstrated restraint in the way that they built lists, even if some of the lists were obviously stronger than others. I just think that's just 40k as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
and I say this as someone who brought a powerful list, clearly.
Indeed. I think there's one of those things is, as Tim sort of talked about briefly, there is a discrepancy in power level between those that are on 8th edition codexes versus those that are 9th edition codexes. So those with the 9th edition codexes could probably get away with toning down their list more, whereas people with 8th edition codexes could probably actually take a more competitive list, because they almost need to be to try and even the playing field and be a bit more balanced. And I think there's a general thing, and it feels like it's a bit of an unspoken rule, but everyone kind of knows what is popular, what is internet good, let's say. So as you were saying, if Tim had rocked up with the maximum number of Hive Guard, that would be considered cheesy. But as you say, if you take 6 or 3, it's like they're good, they're really good units, but you've moderated yourself. It's like I could have taken 3 tank commanders because they're one of the best units in the guard army. It's like I took 2 rather than 3, even though I could have technically done that. But I again just wanted to tone it down. I think, we've talked about it briefly. It's like everyone knows that Contemptors or Dreadnoughts are good because of the -1 damage on them. So if you were to take a whole army of them, I would perceive that as a bit cheesy, or, you're gaming the system a little bit, even if it is thematic on some level. Although I somewhat disagree with that, but that's a story for another time. So I think, everyone has a different viewpoint in terms of what is narrative and good, or as well as being good.
I mean, there were at least 3 Dreadnought heavy lists that weekend, wasn't there? Obviously, Richie's with his 5 Dreadnoughts, as you said, right, Rich? It was 5?
It was. I mean, it was Carib Cullen, who's a Leviathan Dreadnought, and another Leviathan Dreadnought, and 2 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and a Contemptor Dreadnought. Which, as I say it out loud, makes me feel a little bit bad for taking it. But it was fun.
And then you had Ross from Rapid Fire, who had I've just got his army list in front of me here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Dreadnoughts. I mean, I would definitely argue that's a Space Wolf Dreadnought army list as well. I'd imagine if you could argue that any of these Dreadnought lists was on the side of being very, very strong, I think this might be it. No disrespect to Ross. That is a very good list that he's brought along there, which potentially is evident in terms of how he performed. And then the other one was Toby and his, again, got the list in front of me here. Toby and his
8 Custodes Dreadnoughts.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Custodes Dreadnoughts, yeah. But again, not necessarily super duper strong, that list necessarily. I mean, very durable, but like I was saying to you guys, doesn't necessarily do a huge amount of damage output if you understand how to kind of neutralize certain aspects of it. But
I mean,
again,
easy for someone to say rocking a transhuman Deathwing army.
Again, though, my Deathwing army only had 15 Terminators in it. That's
Oh,
relatively
only
light.
15, only 15.
Only 15.
Only 15 Terminators. That's only, how many points worth of Terminators was that? That's only, 620 odd points of Terminators.
So basically half your army.
No, come on now, Mr. Maths. That's not half, is it?
750. I mean, okay.
Yeah, so like
a third.
It's like a third, yeah. But it's
Yeah,
good. But no,
third.
yeah, I mean, we got to learn from Dan. There, if you want to beat a dreadnought heavy custodians list, you need to be prepared and adapt and bring Deathwing.
Yes, bring Deathwing. That is the solution to all your problems. Bring the Deathwing. Everything is solved. Anyway, look, I think the thing that we definitely need to talk about, though, regardless of what they brought, some of the... I don't know what it was about the occasion, right? So Tom had his venue mucked around on the night before, and flipping heck. Not enough has probably been said about this already, but huge amount of appreciation and, props to Tom for pulling this together the way he did. I mean, he's been working on this behind the scenes for 3-4 months. And at the 11th hour, literally at like 2:00 on Friday, he finds out that his venue that he has booked months in advance for this event has been double booked by a jumble sale of all glorious things. And the jumble sale was obviously taking priority. And he's got no venue. So, he's got people like, Toke, for example, flying over from Denmark, who could have, by all accounts, have been attending a rather lovely jumble sale. But Tom managed to find a new venue, managed to move everything to said venue, and then obviously managed to communicate with everyone that the venue was changing. I mean, that was a real Herculean task given his, full-time job and everything else that was going on, and the way that it all kind of came together in the time that he had available to him. I mean, that is a massive amount of kudos to that guy. But yeah, look, I mean, the venue, I genuinely think once they work out some of the little nuances that they had to negotiate based on the whole last minute change, I genuinely think that venue could be pretty special in the future. I mean, beautifully picturesque in terms of its location, very well facilitated in terms of its access to kind of food and beverage and all of that stuff with the pub over the road, and just a really nice vibe overall, just clean, relatively modern. It was a great hall. I genuinely felt like it was a fantastic venue. How did others feel about the weird drive up the country roads into the nothing?
Well,
It was a bit weird. Sorry, Phil. It was a bit weird, like going through all the little windy back roads, and then wondering what's going to come around the corner. Because it's like, I see there's pullover points, but are they big enough? I don't know. The hall was lovely, though. I was quite surprised when I rocked up, driving to the middle of nowhere.
It was, I think I absolutely sympathize. I mean, as someone who has navigated his fair share of country roads in my time, that was definitely on the ropier side of windy roads. But yeah, certainly I was a little bit apprehensive about where we might find ourselves at the end, but it turned out good. Wouldn't you say, Phil?
Yeah. No, the actual hall itself was really nice. It was like a very modern village hall. Like it's got to probably be like a year or two old at most. It seemed pretty brand spanking new. Really nice size. I think there was about 23 people at the event. We had decent sized tables, so there was plenty of like almost like a sideboard going around every single mat. So there was plenty of space to put all your models and your books without it actually going on the gaming space. There were these circular tables sort of dotted around as well. Just to put your bags and coats and your dead models on and stuff like that. Every single table was all sort of standalone on its own, so you could freely walk around nice and easy. They weren't in like banks of tables where you got to squeeze past people to get around. Like toilets and kitchen, fantastic as well. And Tom and the RFW guys did a great job putting on a spread of some food for us, free teas and coffees. Tom's one of his little daughters had made muffins and mince pies for everyone, or cupcakes and mince pies, and there was a little kind of honesty box for us to put some money in to eat those. Made it really fantastic, nice sort of cool, chilled vibe. And as I said before, like a bunch of really friendly players as well. So yeah, I really like the venue, and I would love to go back again. It's obviously quite far away from where I live, and it is down some windy roads. But beyond that, it's great once you get there.
Yeah, Rich, what was your vibe on the place? You took some photos of the beautiful vistas as it was getting weirdly ominous.
I did because I I'll echo everything everyone has said so far. I think the windy lanes going in was a little daunting. Going out at the end of the day when it was dark and Storm Arwen was on top of us, that was a bit more exciting, shall we say? But no, we took a bunch of photos because the Storm Arwen, the big storm, big scary storm in the south, and made it snow in the north, etc. It basically made the sky all grey and red, with like red clouds in the sky, blue sky in the distance. It was really, really ominous and weird. But quite very picturesque. It felt like we were at the end of the world. Turns out it wasn't. It was just a storm. But at the time, who knew? Who knew what's going to happen?
Exactly. You're never guaranteed a tomorrow. There you go.
Yeah.
Ominous. But yeah, and look, the people as well, right? I mean, again, collectively, genuinely, I've not been at an event for a long time where by the end of it, I felt a kind of connection to people. Like we had sort of shared a fun experience together. I've had that in the past at like Warhammer World events, but it's been few and far between, certainly within the kind of more competitive scene. Like, I think there are instances, but, not to the extent that was. I think everyone, by the end of it, just came away with a real great sense of, accomplishment and of a sense of kind of community. And I think a lot of people have probably added various people that attended the events to their relative social media and genuinely come away really quite, happy that we, gathered and played games together and are all potentially looking forward to doing it again sometime, which I think is really special. And I think it speaks to how Tom approached it from a TO perspective, because I love the fact that he created all this ceremony around everything. And that was really special, because so often at the moment, even at Warhammer World events, as Richie can attest now, they just turn up and go, yeah, it's on BCP, mate. Click on BCP, see who you're up against. Off you go. It's really, whereas having him, actually TO, actually MC, as it were, it was wonderful. I really appreciated it because it gave it a fun little vibe when friends were playing against each other and they were announced as having come up against each other, or if like certain matchups were happening and people were like cheering them on and all the rest of it. It's like when Tim drew Toke in the final round, I had a sense of pride in that moment. I was like, yeah, go on, Tim, smash him. Not that I wouldn't necessarily have also been proud of Toke smashing Tim, but Tim's my boy. Got to support the Tim. But I thought, again, without wanting this to just become a core blimey, what a good job Tom did. But yeah, core blimey, what a good job he did. But I enjoyed that. I mean, again, it's the little things. But I mean, what did you think of the crowd, the vibe? What was the feels?
I thought it was a really good atmosphere. Again, just to like pick up on one of the comments you said, is like the MCing that Tom did really added to the charm of the event. I think if that was lost in any future events he does, that would be a real detriment to the actual tournament. I think there will become a point though where it depends on how big the event's going to be. Because let's face it, if you've got 40 people, so 20 matchups, or maybe a little bit more, it's going to become a little bit laborious to like shout out everybody's name and then announce who's facing who. Whereas the size of the event we were at, I felt like it was a good number of people to do such a thing.
Yeah, I spoke to him afterwards, and it sounded like he wants to keep it at that number so it is nice and spacious. I think one of the other guys said you could probably fit about 40 people in that hall, but he wanted to keep it quite low because, as you say, keeps it a bit more casual, a lot more space, and a bit more of a chilled atmosphere.
It feels a lot more personal as well when it's like a lower level, as you mentioned as well. Like it adds to like the positivity of the place because everybody gets to mingle with everybody. There's not people will naturally separate off into their own little groups. We did it. In fact, we used to hang out in the corner by the little tea urn, which was
I was hanging
just
out there just
coincidental.
because that's where the radiator was.
Oh right, okay. Oh, it wasn't because of my award-winning personality.
Definitely not.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Tim.
Have you won an award for your personality, Tim?
You've come close,
No, I
though.
don't think I have.
Come
It's
close.
just to say.
He's come close.
I've come close, as we all know, in one GT event.
2 GT events, in fact.
Well, yeah, you know. And
You've
now
twice come close.
and now they've taken it away. I'll just take away your belt. It's fine.
It's all right. You're going to win it at the doubles, mate. I believe.
Oh God, maybe we shall see.
You're going to. I trust.
In Tim we trust.
exactly.
But yeah, I guess one thing I'd like them to think about, and I don't think any other tournaments really do this, is actually table height. I actually think, I know it's a pain in the bum to resolve as well, because trying to find the tables were good. They were nice and level. Like obviously it was 2 tables put together, and as we've mentioned, there was quite a lot of room around to put your dice tray and your books and stuff, and that was great. That was great. I think the cherry on the top would be is if you could raise the tables just a little bit more. Again, I don't know how. I am just speculating. I think that would be a nice little like quality of life improvement.
I guess the
So
only
what?
downside of that, though, is one, if you sat down, it's probably a bit too high. And 2,
True,
it
true.
potentially excludes people in wheelchairs. I mean, that's quite rare, but something I guess you need to consider. I'm sure there are 40k players that need the lower tables, but I know what you mean. Like after a while, your back does start to hurt because of the how low the tables are. But that's like everywhere, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I say it's a problem. That's just it's not really a problem. It's just a thing I've noticed across other tournaments and stuff, and I just think it would be a nice little change. But I also realise, like, although that sounds like such a minute change, the actual logistics and practicality of implementing that change is 10 times more than just make the tables higher, you know?
Yeah. But you've also got to account for the variables, because some people might not want the higher tables. So then what's the solution, right? I mean, you can't turn up with like those smart desks that you get where they've got where they got the standing desks or whatever. Like that's not going to happen, is it? I mean, don't get me wrong. Someone out there with a lot of money and an eccentric attitude could run an event venue with, tables.
Exactly what I'm asking for, Dan. I want
Is that what you
Tom
want?
to really invest. I want him to put in thousands of pounds to get adjustable desks based on people's preferences.
Tens of thousands of pounds, I would imagine. I assume those.
Maybe you just need to bring some books along and raise your own table.
That's it.
Well,
Although,
maybe.
given that those were 2 tables pushed together, yeah, you'd need 8 piles of books, Tim.
There you go.
I think it depends how like permanent your event setup is, because Entoyment does have higher tables, right?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
That's one thing I do like going doing events there, because it's like the tables are raised, so you can't sit down, but then you're not hunched over. You're actually standing at least for my height, like a good place to be playing. Whereas
Entoyment has really great table setups. Like, it's one of the best things about that venue for sure.
not the KFC around the corner.
No.
Because
It's not enough round the corner. It's more of a drive. Plus, they won't let you take it into the venue.
That's true. That is true.
If they let you take your KFC in, I'd say Entoyment would be 10 out of 10.
And it's also a treasure trove, because you never know what kind of weird, like, rare stuff they'll have in that store.
Oh yeah, that's the other problem as well. You can very easily part with a lot of money when you walk into Entoyment. It's a dangerous place.
But yeah, so in terms of the permanency of the setup, because like this hall we went to was really cool. It was really well laid out, and they had all these tables there that we could just use. And the fact and they were just really impressive. They just had that available. But then of course they
Mm.
need to be able to come in and come out. So I think it'd be great if someone could make. I don't know. Is there a market for slightly taller than other tables?
I mean, I'm sure it's the wargaming market, which is limited when it comes to that kind of expensive furniture. I mean, you know, I bought a gaming table and it ain't cheap, right? Like that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're talking about a very specialist market. Although I assume that if you're looking at it as a long-term solution, you can do like what Entoyment did, which is essentially build custom gaming tables. Like every one of the Entoyment tables is a custom job, but you know that took some poor sod in some chippy in a workshop many moons to put all that together. And it depends on where you're going to store it and how you're going to deal with that. I mean, I was talking to Tom about what he's going to do about terrain going forwards, because he borrowed terrain from the Kent Wargaming group. And I was like, is that the long-term solution, or are you going to try and get a lot of your own? And at the moment, he's just not sure. I mean, again, he's looking at everything with relative short-term views. He's going to put on another one. He's going to see if it builds more momentum and take it from there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes on that front. I think, yeah, just the mood was, again, incredible. It was great. I think it was a good vibe overall. But yeah, table heights and things like that, I think there's definitely things they can do to improve that. And I'm sure they will do. The only other thing I think that would help them is just some kind of extra little bits of multimedia in there. Just get a screen or something set up so as there's some supporting imagery alongside the commentary that is being given. So, you know, when you're doing the matchups, prep some, you know, slides on PowerPoint real quick where the names just appear so you can just go through. So, you know, if you've got 12 pairings or 14 pairings or whatever it was, I think actually it was 13 bizarrely, but anyway, 13 pairings, you know, you do your 13 slides with the pairings and then you finish with the table that says where everyone is. Because even though he called it out, loads of people were like, sorry, Tom, where am I again? What's going on? What day of the week is it? So yeah, I just think a few little minor adjustments, and obviously food wise as well. I think obviously if they come to an arrangement with the pub across the road, which I'm sure they would have done had they known they were going to be there, but I'm sure if they arrange something with the pub, so as they put on some kind of like buffet lunch or something where we can opt in and just nip over the road, I think, yeah, you know, because I'm sure that pub was pretty pleased when they did, you know, 15, 16 people's food orders on a random Saturday where they probably weren't expecting that business.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they would have been even happier had they known it was coming. You know?
Yeah, I mean, also props to the RFW guys. I think they basically brought in like 4 or 5 pitchers of beer, like off their own.
Oh
back,
yeah,
just
God, that
for
was
just for everyone to have, which was not needed, but also, you know, pleasant that they'd actually done it.
Well, it's a testament to what they're trying to do, right? It's like, again, it's sort of a, you know, bit of appreciation or a bit of just sort of community stuff where, you know, I think they were just enjoying it. You know, I don't think they're trying to make serious money out of these events. I think they're just trying to host fun events. And I think that's the thing. I think they were just sort of trying to give back where they could, which was cool. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to drink any of the beer because I was driving. I had to be responsible.
Yeah, same here. Let us not forget that we also got a free RFW dice as well.
We did also get a free RFW dice.
Do you know what? I really liked that. So beginning of game 1, Big Phil went round with a little bag of dice and was like, pick your colour. I went for the classic Sons of Horus, green with a little gold pips and stuff. And I use that for all my, you know, when you're rolling off at the beginning of the games and stuff.
Nice.
So that was just a nice little touch. Totally wasn't expecting it at all either. So that was cool.
Yeah, I agree. Nice little touch. And I did exactly the same thing. I was using it for like any sort of important roll-offs or the start of the game. That's great.
I continued to use my weighted dice the whole time.
Of course you did.
Of course you did, you massive tryhard.
No, I did use the RFW dice. Of course I did. How could you not? Under the
you had the dice that when you need to do D3 damage, it always does flat 3.
Yeah, that's how it goes. I call them the Calgar.
The Calgar dice.
Yeah.
I don't want to alarm you, Dad, but I did put your dice in like some water just to see how it was balanced, and yeah, it did come up sixes quite a lot.
Oh, did it? Did it?
Yeah,
Well, there you go. There you go. That's just random happenstance. You can't prove
yeah.
anything.
Oh,
with
is
that.
it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Quiet, Tim, quiet. But there we go. So let's just talk about the games quickly, right?
Yep.
So we played 3 games. I'm conscious of the fact that us just prattling on about the opponents and what we did and in detail is probably going to be a little bit kind of tedious for our listeners. But broadly, in about 5 minutes, summarize your games, your opponents, shout them out, shower them with love. Richie, let's start with you, buddy. Come on now. Who did you play? How did you do? What was your record of achievement?
Well, now I've got to remember all the names. Now you've put me on the spot now.
Well, we can move over to Phil. He might
No,
remember his name.
I can remember most of them. So I played Big Phil from Rapid Fire Wargaming, who had his Tyranids. He also was rocking 6 Hive Guard, hiding behind a building, as they are too. But fortunately, with my balanced and not entirely Dreadnoughts list, I had some Inceptors who could deep strike down and then shoot them, and I was incredibly lucky on shooting most of them off, killing them basically, so they couldn't do their I'm going to kill that without seeing it every turn. But that was a really fun game. I lost that game because you try moving a big squad of was it Zoanthropes with 3 up invuns off the middle objective. You tried shifting that. I tried everything, couldn't do it. But it also had the big Democradon thing, which is awesome to see. It ripped through Carib Cullen, and then I did get my revenge by killing it. But it was just great to have that on the board and just face off against that. My favourite moment was probably when Severin Loth, who I forgot had loads of cool buffs against Strikers, to take them out. Just went and single-handedly killed the Broodlord in combat in 1 round, which was pretty exciting. That was fun. That he did that.
That was his Warlord, wasn't it?
It was his Warlord as well. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to win the game, because see the previous mention about the Zoanthropes who were sitting on that central objective. But it was a very good fun game. Game 2, I cannot remember the guy's name.
What did he run?
He ran Grey Knights. He was bringing a fun, fluffy Grey Knight list. He had a Land Raider, he had a Storm Raven, and turn 1 was lots of exchanging of gunfire, and then lots of things not getting destroyed, and then his vehicles got destroyed, and it got a bit more tougher to deal with what was left of my Dreadnoughts, which he hadn't damaged at all. So
his name was Matt, by the way.
Matt. Well, there you go. Thank you. It was a tough game because that quickly started going my way. It was a very tight scoring game though, because we weren't able to on that particular mission. We couldn't. It was score more, and kill more, but you got no points. You got no points if you just did a kill, and we were kind of still sitting on each other's objectives and trading units every single turn until about turn 3 when it kind of just all completely swung my way. But that was a good fun game. Some big clashes in the middle, and they had a Nemesis Dread Knight Grandmaster.
Yeah.
They are really good and really scary unless they fail most of their hits, and then you make all of your saves, and then they're quite vulnerable against a Dreadnought if they haven't killed the Dreadnought first. But credit to him, he went all in. He went all in trying to kill Cullen with that Grandmaster. He just completely failed, and then Cullen ripped him to pieces. So that was still a fun game. I got to see what it's like to have Grey Knight psychic powers being thrown at you, which is quite scary.
The Vortex of Doom is a fun old time, isn't it?
It's horrible. It's very horrible. And it got worse because in my 3rd game, which was against Michael or Mike, I forgot what he preferred. Toke's buddy from Denmark, who also brought Grey Knights. That was a really cool mission because all the objectives were in each other's deployment zones, and they were quite thin deployment zones on either side of the board. So basically, there's this huge no man's land in the middle that no one really cared about. It all was about how do you get into each other's deployment zone for the end of the game to win. And I started off well, but then I kept taking out one of his Dread Knight things. But then he was like just storming into my deployment zone, and I had to fight him off. And it really came down to the wire in the final turn with some last minute charges and Hail Marys across the board to try and cling back a victory, which I failed. I did lose, but there were some great fun moments in that game, and it's really, really great guy, and it was a great battlefield as well. Generally one of my favorite games. I played that one. Really enjoyed it. So thank you, Michael.
Amazing. So all told, 2-1, 2 losses, 1 win, but a good time was had.
It was 1 win, 2 losses. I actually I placed not too badly, if I mean, because of the way they did the scoring, because it was all my games were quite close. I was still quite high in the rankings.
It's worth mentioning because they did points differential in order to assert. So depending on how much you lost by or how much you won by, essentially meant you could still be in the running. So looking at your score, Rich, you did an 11, 14, 11, which is pretty reasonable, actually. So you never fell into single digits in any of your games. And overall, according to this, you came 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11th, mate.
It sounds more impressive when you don't do the whole count up to it. But
I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry. I had to do it because he hasn't numbered it. He just put the Excel sheet, just like slapped it on with no numbers next to it. So you can't interact with it like it's an Excel sheet or anything. I can't just do it quickly. So I had to mouse over everything.
Yeah, no, that was. I thought I was quite pleased with myself where I netted out by. Basically, I didn't lose by much in the 2 games I did lose, so I still placed quite high, and I like that was that came into play.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well done, Tim. How was your experience? Who did you play? How did it go?
Yeah, well, my first game was against the lovely Nick Goddard, who was running his really well painted Death Guard army.
Gorgeous army.
Oh, it was beautiful. I should say that from the offset, I had one goal in mind throughout this whole tournament, and that was just to get a first turn charge off with my Gene Sealers, because I wasn't running them as Kraken, and I just wanted to see them smash into stuff and see what happens. But that didn't happen this game because I got the second. I was going second. However, I made my little castle. I had my little Gene Stealers run up the board, and it was very like was a bit to and fro because on my left hand flank he was coming at me with like his 3 rhinos with all like his little like plague marines in them, 7 in total. Good man, keeping to the Nurgle number. With like some predators and land raiders at the back, and there were some funny moments of me like trying to trade blows with his Lord of Vigilance and my Broodlord. Didn't go down so well, or like my Gene Stealers running into his Death Guard, Dark Reaper, the guys with the Reapers, Death Shroud.
Death Shroud, yeah.
That was quite an epic moment as well. So for game 1, it was great. Absolutely great. The second game, that was a loss on my part. Pretty close loss, I think, or close-ish. My second game was against Tiggy, who was running his Dark Angels. Again, we previously spoke about them, and that was the kill more, hold more one. I'd like to probably mention at this point, thank God we didn't have to worry about secondaries in this, like 9th edition secondaries. It's to deal with that headache as well probably would have been a detriment to the tournament, but just having First Strike, Slay the Warlord, and Linebreaker it was nice to have them back. I didn't realize how much I missed them. I didn't realize how much I missed the simplicity of them as well when you're trying to deal with anything else. Anyways, we had a nice, enthusiastic, over-the-top game. Every dice roll mattered, although it didn't, but it did. Again, I lined up my Gene Stealers trying to smash into his lines. I didn't get the roll off to go first, so that didn't work so well. So I was just using my Hive Guards to chip away at like his. I managed to remove his Redemptor Dreadnought. He took off like my Exocrines, and then like my warriors that were trying to sneak around and cap points, he was just chipping them off left, right, and center. And then I was just trying to get my Broodlord stuck in wherever I could, and we had a little epic fight between like his champion and stuff, of trying to get him down to 1 wound, and then he wouldn't lose his last wound, and then he knocked off my Broodlord. It was like, oh well. So that was a loss.
Howler.
I know, a howler, but that was probably one of my heavier losses. And then my last game was with Toke, and this was an amazing
Friend of the show.
Old Toke of the Krieg. And this is the first time I've actually played against Krieg. I haven't even played against Phil's Krieg, believe it or not.
What? No, you have.
Yeah. No, I haven't. I don't think I have.
I'm sure you
That's
have.
how
but
memorable it was,
It might not have been a one-on-one. I think it was me versus you and Sean at Warhammer World one time.
Oh, a threesome.
Yeah.
Oh, a little threesome.
You had your. That was when you had your AdMech, actually.
I think he's confused you for another man, Tim.
Maybe. Who knows? I did have AdMech like once upon a time. I brought that army and then I sold it again.
Yep, that was it. Yeah.
That was, yeah. Oh, yeah. Many moons ago. I'm sorry, Phil. I apologize.
How dare you?
I know. How dare you. Anyway, so.
That was everything to Phil.
I know. You can
For
see
you,
he's so
it was-
heartbroken. For me, it was
you,
just a
it was
fleeting
just
moment.
Tuesday.
Anyway, so I played the lovely Toke and his lovely Krieg and his well painted, well converted, just
Army of the event, no less.
army
Best
of,
painted army.
and rightly so. But man,
You
that
can
man,
see Phil bubbling there. He's
I
like,
Sorry, Phil.
It's a flipping nice painted army then.
Yeah, but he really needs to buy a carry case or something to transport that army in.
Oh yes, I loved how he individually wraps up each Death Rider in toilet paper and then puts it in a toolbox, and that's how he travels internationally with his army.
It's incredible the amount of love he puts into it, and that's how he transports it. Anyway, sorry, I digress. We squared off on either side of the table, as Richie said. It was like thin deployment lines, with like a little wedge shape, as it were. Again, I lined up my Gene Stealers against these little horsies, Death Riders, I believe you said they were, Phil. And we were just planning to have an epic clash in the middle, and we did have an epic clash in the middle. I managed to actually chew through all of his cavalry, which was pretty impressive, with the use of like the Hive Guard and the -1 strength aura from the Maliceptor, which I would highly recommend kids at home, but it only really works if you get the first turn. Just remember that, which I didn't get throughout the whole weekend. I did not have one first turn. It sucked. Anyways, so I had a bit of a clash in the middle. I chipped off most of his cavalry where I really should have focused on his troops, but who plays tactics in this game anyway? And eventually I managed to get my Broodlord, who was on 1 wound, into one of his FUD guns, where Toke decided to use a very cool stratagem where you can like use the artillery or
crush
use the
them,
vehicle.
so it allows you to hit on a 2+ with a vehicle.
Yeah, it was amazing. But anyway, so my Broodlord had 1 wound left. He used Crush him. Obviously, the Broodlord failed his 5-up invuln and died. And it was spectacular. And then it was just a case of like trading units left, right, and his engineers like put a massive dent in my warriors and my swarm, my Hive Tyrant as well. But the game was very like back and forth, exchanging units, and it was pretty close. And that was a good game.
Sounds good, man. I mean, again, it was another great example of lovely things going on other parts of the event. Yeah, you were making your presence felt.
I try and put right. After the event, I was knackered. I was devastated. And I think that's just because I put too much. Well, maybe I put too much enthusiasm.
You've been on the shelf the last few months after the cycling injury.
Well, this is it, and this was like my first tournament back into 40k as well.
Yeah.
So this was like the first time I was rolling dice in a tournament, and the first time I'd seen you guys really in a while. Besides, obviously, we had a game before, Dan. But yeah, seeing Phil and Rich and just being in that environment again, it was great, and I was just like loving life.
It's a weird type of endurance sport, isn't it? 40k tournaments, like you have to be kind of. It's not necessarily something that you have to be especially fit for, but you have to be especially fit for it in a weird way. Like it's sort of a strange thing. Like there is definitely something to be said. Like certain people can deal with it better than others.
It's leg stamina.
It is-
Absolutely. Like I don't think I could go toe to toe with anyone in terms of any kind of like sporting exercise, but I could stand in the same place pretty well.
Well, I was saying
Um,
this to you guys afterwards. Like, I felt like I don't have my tournament fitness anymore. Because standing at a table for how many ever hours it is, what is like 7 hours are we there at a tournament scene?
Yeah, and the rest. Yeah,
And
it's,
the rest.
I mean, we got there at 8:30 in the morning. We left at 7:30.
Yeah, so that's like almost a 12-hour day. And then you've got
Yeah.
your talking on top, and then the mental capacity, capacity of like trying to deal with the game itself. And then you add my shouting on top of that. My whole body was like destroyed. It was great. I loved
Don't
it.
think you're mentally drained as well. That's
Yeah.
the thing you always forget is that your brain is sort of thinking through all the strategies. Yeah, I felt the same way. I was very much like I not like I need to do many more of these, but I'm definitely out of practice of doing these.
And I think that just goes to show that the more you practice with your army, the more of these things that become second nature. So if you do go to competitive like tournaments or any kind of tournament, in fact, you're just able to quick fire these stratagems that you know when to use at the right situation, instead of like, oh, hang on a minute, let me look through my book, or let me look up Wikipedia, or let me do this, and fish them out.
Yeah, no, it definitely repetition is important when it comes to playing 40k armies. You do want to get lots of games in, so as you start to understand certain mechanics of it, for sure. All right, Phil. Although Tim, so at the end of it was just 3 losses. Was that
3 amazing losses, mate, and I never felt better.
But
at
no
the
wooden
end of it
spoon for
all-
you.
I know, and that was the thing that I remarked upon. Is like Tim is so bad he couldn't even lose.
I know,
You
right? Damn it. I think I came 4th from the bottom as well, something like that.
That's not too bad.
That's it. You're so useless, Tim, that in a competition deciding the most useless, you came second.
Well, this is it. So, so the thing is, when you run NIDS, it's like, and unless you're doing the Broken Hive Guard way, when you enter a game as NIDS, it's not your game to win; it's your opponent's game to lose. Because,
Oh, okay.
yeah, because if they lose against me,
Deep.
that's bad. That is bad. Let's face it.
This is true. This is why I don't want to ever play Tim.
He's got to win one day.
I'm due a win.
Well, on the topic of winners, let's listen to what Phil had to say, because I mean, he was on a stormer, right, Phil? I mean, a pretty successful outing.
Yeah, it was pretty good overall, which makes for a nice change, I guess, than my usual. But yeah, first game I was playing against David and his beautiful squat army. So this was he's running it as orcs. But yeah, a lot of it was all old, like actual squat models, which was really cool. Some of them were crazy expensive, like they were never released models. So there are, back in the days of old sort of Rogue Trader and second edition, there were a lot of like test miniatures made, but never actually put out to proper production, and you can buy them like secondhand on eBay for crazy money. So he had a couple of those in his army, which was really impressive. As I said, he had like an old epic gyrocopter that had been 3D printed that I think was the Dakar jet. He had 2 planes. He had a bunch of trucks, which were using the Gene Stealer Colt trucks. He had, and then he'd kind of kit bash like a truck limo to be the battle wagon. And then he had the Adeptus Mechanicus / Adeptus Astartes termite drill to represent the bone breaker, which is because it could deep strike, so he was using that to represent that. He had Gotrex from Gotrex and not Felix, because he's not in it anymore, as his like a war boss as well. So he had kind of a mixture of actual old squat models, kit bashes, conversions, and stuff like that. And he was a lovely chap to play against. As I mentioned, this was his 3rd game of 9th edition. Yeah, it was really interesting, like the way we deployed. Basically, all the planes went on the far side. It was like Dawn of War deployment, and then literally everything else was on the other side. He hadn't actually like and I think this might have been his mistake, was that he'd put his trucks and stuff all literally on the deployment zone, not behind buildings or anything like that. So, and there was a bit of a firing lane on our Dawn of War boards. So it was basically whoever went first was going to do an awful lot of shooting. And it just so happened that I managed to go first. So my first turn, I basically managed to move my horses up to get on the middle objective. I basically kept my Hades drills on the table, so they were like my second screening unit, so they trundled along behind, and then I actually just had all my Lehman Russes and stuff behind them. So I managed to take out one of the flyers, take out two of the trucks. My Punisher tank commander, who, because I had two tank commanders, my fluffy explanation for this is I spent 2 CP to upgrade one of them to the Commiserate tank, because it basically had a Commissar model in it, so it got a Leadership 9 aura ability, which was actually quite useful because in my sort of return turn, they took a lot of damage. So having the Leadership 9 meant I actually didn't have to take morale tests for them, which was really cool. So it was thematic and quite useful. But yeah, my second turn, I managed to like kill the other flyer, take out the battle wagon, for example, and
you killed it all. Basically.
Well, yeah, by turn 4, I tabled him, but it was still quite close. So the first 3 turns were actually super close. We were like neck and neck because we were sort of fighting over that middle objective, and he was actually most of the time he was on it because he had OBSEC and I had very few OBSEC. And basically, he charged in with his termite drill, killed the Hades drill. And then I suggested that actually he should pile into the horses and actually do damage on them rather than just doing all the attacks on Hades drill that he killed. So he did that. I basically had to fall that back, shoot at his termite drill. Out comes a bunch of squats in exo armor, which are the big up armored orcs, and his war boss, and they were OBSEC. So basically I had to kill them in like my round of shooting, otherwise he would have had another turn on that middle objective. But basically like turn 3 I managed to kill them. Turn 4 I think maybe that was when he just had his weird boy left, and I dropped a bunch of scions and engineers down to take out his backfield objective. So I'd stolen that, so the last 2 turns I was scoring all the objectives. So yeah, it was like what was it, 17-5 in the end, so it was a runaway victory on that one.
You were number 1 by the end of that game, mate. Top player coming into round 2.
I know. Well, we'd finished the game an hour early, which was unheard of for me. But also, it was the first game that had finished as well. So I was like, oh wow, oh okay.
Whoopsie.
So I felt a little bit bad about that, but he actually had a blast and didn't mind. Like he was just like, this is what I want to do. Yeah, I had fun, even if I was losing, which was a great attitude to have, I would say.
Awesome stuff. So how was game 2, mate? Who did you face off
against?
Game 2
was Toke's mate, Michael. He's on Instagram.
Oh, the one that Richard faced with the Grey Knights.
Yeah, so he's at 40k_topper with double P on Instagram if you want to check him out. Yeah, his Grey Knight's really lovely. Got some cool conversions and I think 3D printed parts. He's got like 2 Dread Knights, a squad of Paladins, and a bunch of, I want to say they're called Inceptors, which are the ones that can like teleport about, or like just move really quickly and with a stratagem teleport about. This was like a really close game. Like it was neck and neck for the first few turns. In fact, first 2 turns I thought I was going to lose it quite easily, but I sort of managed to claw it back. He got really lucky. He got to go first. I kept all my screening units, all my infantry off the board because this one had 6 objectives, so I needed to deep strike in my scions and my engineers to actually jump around the board. So all I had was my Death Riders and my Hades drills to like screen and protect my tanks. He got a lucky turn 1 charge off with his Terminators, so he had to make a 9-inch charge, made it in, killed my Hades drill, tagged my Plasma tank commander in combat. And I put sponsons on all my tanks so they could shoot in combat, but you know that one had plasma sponson, so I just had to fall them back. And for the first few turns, he was tagging my tanks, I was falling them back and shooting those units to finish them off with everything else that I had, which was But by turn 3, it was swinging in my favor though. I remember one point I'd charged my Hades drill into one of his Dread Knights. I'd knocked it down to 1 wound He had then charged it with some Inceptors to try and kill it, because I was going to have a priority in terms of attacking. So he got to charge first. So he got to attack first, killed the Hades drill because it was only on a few wounds left. But the Krieg rule is if you don't explode and on a 4-up, you can attack again. So my Hades drill did that. So it got to make one single attack, which I nominated on the Dread Knight. I hit, I wounded it. I think he had a 4-up invuln save, which he failed, and then I killed him, which was really cool to have that Krieg ability sort of finally actually work. And I did that a couple of times with the rapiers as well. That was quite useful when you can pull that off. But yeah, it was. I didn't quite table him. He had one model left by the end though, because the last few turns sort of swung in my favour quite significantly. And it was 7-2 on that one.
Not bad.
So it was pretty cool. It was a good game.
You are literally going into game 3, the number 1 fella.
I didn't realise it because I wasn't actually on table 1 at the time.
Well, the reason you weren't on table 1 was because your opponent in the final game was on table 1 in game 2. So the decision was taken to move that individual to table 12, and you came along for the ride.
I did, yeah. So I was up on the top table. I've never breathed the fresh air so high. The only time I had was with the doubles with Dan when we were doing so well. But yeah, I was up against Ross from RFW himself with his, as we've said, 8 dreadnoughts that were Space Wolves.
Strong list.
Oh my god,
Strong
it
list.
was. I knew. Well, he's a very competent, competitive player. Anyway, like he knows his stuff. The list was also Richard's laughing and he's muted, so I think he. But yeah, he knows his stuff. The army list, he's on the top table for obvious reasons because it's a solid list. Yeah, there was also tons of dense terrain on this board as well, which really didn't help. There was like 4 lots of forests, so everything was getting -1 to hit. He's got a bunch of close combat dreadnoughts and shooty dreadnoughts. He's got a ton of melter as well. He got to go first. He took out one of my plasma tank commander, which is like my go-to, it's like the kind of that anchor to my army because he can do double orders. So he normally orders the rapiers squad to reroll 1s to hit. So losing that was a bit of a blow. He also killed 2 of my rapiers, but one of them did get to shoot back and kill one of his redemptors in return. And at that point, he was like, dear God, those things are dangerous and need to die. And I think Michael had a similar experience in game 2 because they are really good units. And the fact that they can shoot when they die, even though it's only 50-50, is really good. But basically he was running at me. He had to keep some of his dreadnoughts back defensively on his 2 objectives that were in his deployment zone, or was it 3 in each deployment zone?
3 in each deployment.
So he obviously had to keep 3 dreadnoughts back, which I was like, aha. So in this one, I was deep striking the Hades drills because I was like, they can come down and try and shift some of those dreadnoughts that can be on his objectives, and same with the scions and stuff. But yeah, ultimately, I just lost too much turn 1, and then he was charging up in my lines. Didn't really have anything to sort of slow him down in any way. So it was a bit of a losing battle, unfortunately. I think for the first 3 turns, it was really neck and neck, though, in terms of points. I had managed to finally deep strike my Hades drills on. One of them got a charge off and killed one of his dreadnoughts straight away. And my scions dropped down on that side as well to sort of hold that objective. Whereas on the other side, I dropped down my Hades out of charge range and hid it behind a building. So for the second turn, it could actually come up onto the objective. And this is where Ross did something actually really clever. Whereas rather than keeping his dreadnought on the objective, he had a redemptor on that side. He moved it off of the objective and put he had a librarian with jump pack. So he put that on the objective. So basically I had 2 choices, either kill the librarian and score was it 2 or 3 points for his objective? I think it was 2 points. Or kill the dreadnought but not be on the objective and not score the points for that turn. And ultimately I went to go on the objective because it's like that's what the game's all about. But it meant in his turn he could just shoot me with he had Bjorn with his multi-melters. So he just shot me off that turn. By the end of the game, I had one model left, which was my Tempesta Scion Prime. He was in combat with a dreadnought, and it was like, do I stay in combat for a valiant hurrah, or do I fall back and get Linebreaker? So that's what I did. He valiantly retreated away. In the end, though, it was 33-16, so it was still quite high scoring for both of us.
33 to
16, yeah.
Nice.
Oh, in terms of the actual
yes,
points,
yeah. So I'm talking
points.
about the victory points, and this is where I think the margin of victory doesn't really do you justice. So with this, for margin of victory, because the difference was so high, he basically, so there's a pool of 20 points that you split between you. He got 19, I got 1, which is a 1-to-19 ratio, and it's like, but actually I scored half of what he got. So really, the margin of victory doesn't actually correlate to the fact that it was a very high scoring game and was actually a lot closer in points than the margin of victory actually implies. So that's my only criticism of margin of victory, is it doesn't really account for high scoring games where the margin's still quite high. Because I mean, if you got 1 victory point and 10 victory points, that's a huge smashing. But if you have 50 victory points to 80 victory points, that's really close, but the margin of victory would be exactly the same, which to me doesn't make sense. Anyway, so I lost my last game, sadly, which meant Ross had won all of his games on the top table.
There you go. There we are. So I'll go through mine, I guess, just to wrap this all up. So game 1, I played against Toby, who was running the infamous in our small social circle Custodes Dreadnought list. There was some debate when that list emerged on the various Facebook groups amongst ourselves about whether or not this was in the spirit of the occasion. And I was a avid defender of it. I was like, no, that's not an especially broken list. Certain type of player could definitely accommodate for that and be able to beat it relatively well. Which in a way it was lucky that I did such a kind of detailed breakdown of it the day before, because as it transpired, I ended up playing it. So there was 2 kind of amusing elements to this matchup. One, I was playing against the guy whose army I had gone into detail about how you might go about beating it. But then 2, I now had to beat it, because obviously you can't be talking the game that I was talking and lose. Like that's just not a...
Do you feel like this was a fix-up by the organisers? After all
if
your
it
big
was,
talk, he was like, I'm going to pair you 2 together.
If it was, then fair play. I mean, at the end of the day, I appreciate the fact that if they did do that they did, because in a way it demonstrates that I sort of know what I'm talking about because I won. Shock horror. And the way I won was majoritively down to one specific tactical decision, but also it was very heavily influenced by actual objective placement, which again is another part of the game that you lose out on when you're playing the match play scenarios and all the objective markers are fixed. There's no kind of strategy to where the objective lies. Whereas in this game, I had seen that his objective marker was on one side of the board, so I took the decision to position mine on the opposite end. So I basically put it as far to the left, my left, as I could. And he had essentially positioned his as far to his left or my right as he seemingly could. And where that kind of played to my benefit is that I knew he had a relatively limited footprint because I'd extensively spoken about it the day before. And I knew that if he wanted to put pressure onto my objective, that he was going to need to commit a relatively strong force into that corner. And that is what he did. And effectively, through the mobility of my Raven Wing detachment, combined with the durability of my Death Wing, I was able to essentially corner him in that corner. So he had complete control by turn 3 of my objective in my deployment zone. but the same was true of me with his. The only difference is that I had managed to win the battle of attrition for the middle ground and was essentially dominating the majority of the board, where all of his stuff was just sitting in what used to be my deployment zone. So yeah, at the end of it all, I managed to get a pretty decisive victory, managed to slay the warlord, managed to line break, did not manage to first strike because it just wasn't going to happen. I just, unless I got really lucky with the multi-mounters on my land speeders, which I didn't, it just wasn't going to occur. So yeah, that's how that one went. It was a really great game. Toby is an absolute top bloke. His army list is gorgeous. The paintwork he's done on those dreadnoughts is stunning. And yeah, just a really great way to start the weekend. A really beautiful army that was definitely challenging, played by a guy who knew what he was up to, and ultimately a great time was had by all. So that was my first game. Phenomenal way to kick off the weekend. Game 2 was against a guy called Frank, who informed me that he listens to the show. So thank you, Frank. And if you're listening, hello. And he was running probably what I had asserted as possibly the army list that's going to win the whole darn thing, which was the Free Exalted Bloodthirsters, all the bloodletters list. I mean, this list was tasty. If there was a candidate for an army list that might be considered a bit too strong for the flavor of the event, this would have been in my short list for sure. Between that and and Ross's Dreadnought list, I say, were probably the two real oh god, that's pretty beefy.
I mean that's fair to say, because before the event, that Custodian's Dreadnought list was pretty scary. As soon as we got there, I was like, I do not want to come up against the Bloodletters list, especially not on 18 inches. Well, some of the missions had 18 inches between deployment zones,
which was this one, right? Like there was very little air between us, and having those bloodthirsters breathe down your neck is not fun. Fortunately for me, though, my army managed to contain them relatively well. And the way I did it was that I essentially split his priorities. I knew with the way that his list ran that he had 4 really meaningful units that could do some good work, which is the 3 bloodthirsters and the 1 unit of 20 bloodletters that he was deep striking in. And I knew that was coming. I've played against it enough to understand how that works. I needed to essentially look after my backline kind of anti-infantry stuff, which was like the Talon Master and the bikes and the Terminators with the Storm Bolters, because they do the majority of the heavy lifting in this matchup because they clean the horde. Like every turn I was killing an entire unit of bloodletters. I was just literally like, yeah, they're all dead. I mean, and to be fair, the Talon Master was doing the great majority of it. I think if I was going to lean into a more competitive version of this list, I definitely would be rocking 2 Talon Masters. Those things just shoot for days. But anyway, look, long story short, yes, it was scary, but I managed to basically dilute his assault because I managed to use the terrain to split his priorities, and he essentially flung Bloodthirsters into different targets, which did as well as they could at soaking up what damage was given and then hitting back really hard. I made a lot of use of the Raven Wing stratagem where you can attack and then run away, because that's very useful. So yeah, my smashy chaplain definitely, got his scalps that day. So when it was all said and done, it was looking like it was going to be a really tough matchup, but I managed to claw out a win. Which again, at this point, I've played 2 really, really strong lists with really good opponents. I'm having a great time at this point. I'm buzzing. It was like 2 fantastic games. And to unfortunately finish off the weekend, I had to, for some reason, play against some guy called Phil from Rapid Fire Wargaming. Dude, what a horrible way to finish the weekend. I mean, he's so charming, so delightful, such a beautifully painted army. It was the worst. Again, playing against Phil and his Tyranids. So here's the thing with me and Tyranids. Whenever I run any of my Elder lists, Tyranids have always been my kryptonite. Like I've played so many variants of Tyranids that have utterly, utterly handed it to my various Craftworld armies. Like I don't know what it is about me and Nids when I'm running the elves. I just can't make it work. However, Dark Angels are a different story. The number one complaint I would have about this game was, again, much like Phil's final game, we were on a board with way too much terrain, like terrain to the nines. There was nothing but trees everywhere. So my Terminators all of a sudden are waddling around the board, moving 3 inches a turn. It is very difficult to position models, to maneuver. So I definitely said to Tom, myself and Phil said to Tom that, yeah, next time maybe shave down a few of these trees, like maybe take 2 or 3 of these bases off because it's a bit excessive. But irrespective, yeah, I mean, look, I got the first turn. I used the Hunt, which is a Raven Wing stratagem, to move a unit of bikes turn 1. And then in my turn 1, I basically did the double move with the Raven Wing bikers, managed to charge into his Hive Guard turn 1. And although I didn't live for more than a turn in his deployment zone, having that breathing space of a turn of not being shot by those things allowed my army to gain a certain foothold and gain momentum. And that's essentially something that never really went away. I was just always on the front foot in that game. And Phil, to his credit, did an excellent job of addressing all the various threats or dealing with all the problems I was throwing at him. But it just got to a point that I was asking too many questions and he ran out of answers. And in the end, I was just basically able to jump into his deployment zone when I needed to with all my Ravenwing units and seize his objectives. And by the end, I just kind of ran away with it because of the fact that I was just constantly able to take his objectives off him. And only in turn 5 did his, or maybe turn 4, his unit of zone threats managed to get into my back lines and start seizing some of my objectives. But at that point, he had maybe 1 or 2 turns of sitting on my objectives where I had been able to get on at least one of his objectives turns 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, it just went that way. It just turned into a game where I just managed to get momentum on my side. And in the end, I got a decent win, which was lovely because last time I played Phil with that list, his Democarian charged into my Blood Angels and essentially ran into my Leviathan, murdered it, then ran into my unit of Death Company and murdered that. And I was like, "Way, this thing's really fun, isn't it?" So I managed to get the win on that one. So yeah, by the end of it all, myself and Ross were the only 2 players that had won all 3 of their games. And as you might expect, that meant that we did okay from a tournament perspective. Interestingly, the actual winner of the event was Ross. So Ross had such a stupendous result against his first opponent. He had a very strong result against his second opponent, and then obviously got a solid win against Phil, resulting in him essentially having a runaway day of it. Coming up against a series of armies that seemed well suited to being smashed up by Space Wolf Dreadnoughts. And at the end, yeah, he would have been the overall winner had he not decided, out of a sense of obligation, to withdraw himself from the runnings on the understanding that a member of the Rapid Fire crew winning their own tournament might not be a good look. So he stepped down from the number 1 position, and essentially I got to be the runner-up winner. I got to be like one of those children at the sports day who gets his medal for coming last.
Richard's doing a slow clap. You can't see it, but that's what he's doing.
Yeah. So I came second, but the media spin is that I won it. Although myself and Ross have spoken, the gauntlet has been laid down. The championship is not finished yet. We are going to settle it on Rapid Fire's home turf. I'm going to Kent, or wherever it is that they live again, somewhere near Kent. I'm going down to southwest London, and I'm gonna, southeast London, and I'm gonna sling some cubes at Rapid Fire and settle the overall winner of the event. So myself and Ross are going to use the same armies that we ran, and we're going to do that on Rapid Fire Wargaming to decide the overall winner as the only 2 who basically came away with all the wins. But for semantics for where it ended up, I came first, but I didn't really. But maybe I will when I get the chance to play Ross in a few weeks' time. Although, I mean, that list is strong, so I'm not necessarily too hopeful. But we'll see how it goes. For the pride of Lookout Sir, I'm going to go to Rapid Fire, and I'm going to earn that first place finish that I was gifted on Saturday. So there you go. Gauntlet laid down. Looking forward to that, and obviously we'll let you know when that is live, so you can see how I do, and hopefully I'll win. Otherwise, I'll feel awfully inferior.
I'm just saying, if we ever do a Lookout Sir tournament, I ain't stepping down if I win it.
Something tells me, Tim, that might not be a problem.
You put me in an awkward spot. I was about to say credit where's credit due. You did officially win that event, Dan, but now after what you just said to Tim, I don't know if I can say that. Good conscience.
Well, look, I mean, here's the thing. I think this is one of those situations where I think it would have been good to have been able to have played another game to settle it under those circumstances, and we are going to, as I say. So I think that's the way forward. But look, all credit to Ross. I mean, again, stepping down from a first place finish, and obviously doing what he perceived to be the right thing for the event is definitely an admirable thing to do. And Ross is a great guy, and that's the thing. I've probably talked a bit of smack about him and his list throughout the course of this segment, because I'm sort of trying to seed the rivalry for this final that we're gonna have between the two of us. But legitimately, I mean, what a nice thing to do, and definitely I think the right decision under the circumstances. So yeah, look, I'm excited to get to play him in a few weeks, and I think my Dark Angels list has the potential to win the day, but it's going to be an interesting one, because those Space Wolf dreads are fun times. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. But there you go. Look, there's my summary of the event. I technically won. Yay me! But I'm going to prove whether or not I won in a few weeks. Mm-hmm. Noting that I'm only putting the trophy up for grabs. That combat patrol of Space Marines that I won, I'm keeping that.
Keeping that because you don't want to have more grey plastic that you don't need.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm going to keep hold of the combat patrol because it has some kind of monetary value. But that beautifully 3D printed trophy that, in many respects, is actually really lovely. I'll put that on the line against Ross and see how it goes. But there you go.
I was going to say, fair enough. They had some really good prize support. So even though you won it, they were also like they sort of gave a lot of focus to other elements to the hobby. So someone won a wooden spoon and got loads of some dice. There was a couple of awards. There was the RFW award, which was voted by the RFW team, which was like best sportsmanship, sort of best sort of theme of army and composition and stuff like that, which I won one of those. I got a set of dry brushes, which was very nice. There was another one that Rich is doing the slow clap again. I think Frank won the other set, actually, and he got a bunch of terrain.
I mean, Frank, honestly, great guy, and played beautifully within the game. Again, just a really great opponent. Had a great time playing against him. Well deserved. His army was very nice.
Nick with his Death Guard got one of the best units for best vehicle. Toke won 2 awards, which included the same trophy that you got. So he got the best army as voted for by all the players, but also best army as voted for by the RFW team. So a double win for him, which was well deserved. So that's really cool that he got that. And then
I voted for you, Phil.
Oh, thanks very much.
I didn't. I voted for the most stunning Krieg army I've ever seen, which I'm sorry, Phil, it was Toke's.
Oh. Well, no, that's fair enough.
If people haven't seen Toke's army, and the themic bases he does for his stuff is just incredible. And
those Insta photos he does with the Photoshop stuff is incredible as well, isn't it? Where he does the photo shoots with all the gubbins going on. Incredible. Yeah.
I was saying to a couple of people on the event, the difference between his and my army is we obviously both have Krieg armies, but with my standard infantry are 90% bog standard with very minimal basing, whereas almost all of his infantry is individually converted, all have gubbins on the bases, whether it's rocks, graveyards. One of his infantrymen's carrying a baby. Whereas I've got lots of vehicles and I've converted up all my vehicles, whereas he's literally mostly just infantry, horses and artillery pieces. So that's sort of sort of distinction between our two armies. But yeah, I mean, well done him and everyone else that won the awards. I quite like that they did lots of prize support for not just the person that won the event or came second in this case.
I think that was only my only criticism would be that I feel like there should have been more for the second and third place finishes. I understand that they've got the overall winner, but I was surprised that they didn't have like plaques or something for second and third. Like that was my only little grumble in terms of prize support. Like just something to denote. And again, the way that Tom kind of announced it was very much, here's all the people who got like spirit and army painting and lovely. Now let's just get to the person who won it. And it was like, well, okay, was there no second or third? You know what I mean? Like, I think that should be honoured in future events. I think you need to make more of an effort for the guys who come second.
I would argue to not do that at all. And I think partly like he wasn't originally going to even post the leader sort of board of results, because ultimately this isn't what the event's meant to be about. It's not really about placing and winning. I would almost say it should be more about the playing and the taking part and the as you say, the spirit of the game, how you build your army, the theme of it. Ultimately, it shouldn't really you shouldn't really be encouraging people to go there and smash face. If there's no top prize for or even a number one winner, if you don't even care about who wins your games, there's literally no reason to take a try hard competitive list. People will then lean into, I just want to take fun, interesting lists. I want it to do well. You might get people that go, I just want to smash people, but why would you bother like going to an event like this to do that?
Yeah, I see that. I just think
you want the glory.
If you're gonna,
you want the glory, Dan.
No, it's not even about that. I just think it's honoring people's accomplishments, right? Like coming second is meaningful. In this instance, coming second won the whole thing. But the point is that, had it not been the case and I came second, I probably would have been a little bit bummed that I didn't even get a mention. Like, that's the thing. Like, it kind of happened after the fact. Like, they went, oh, Dan won it. Although, again, obviously they did the whole, actually, Ross won it, but now Dan's won it thing, which is fine. Like, that was what it was. But then it was like, oh, and by the way, this guy came second and this guy came third. And it was like, oh, man, like, you want that build-up. You want that, like, just that ceremony. Even if you don't give them anything, like, you don't need to give them anything. Maybe, again, just a certificate. I came first, I came second, I came third, and just a piece of paper. But the point is that I just think, again, it would have just helped the overall sort of theatrics.
Yeah,
of the thing.
I mean, it's a bit like, because you talked about having like media presentations, like if you had a TV screen to display stuff, so when they were giving out the awards for like the best army or best vehicle, for example, like having a photo of those things would be really useful, because I think a couple of them I hadn't seen that thing at all, so I was a bit like, oh well, okay, great, but I don't know what it looked like. Whereas if there was a photo of it, it would help just put a bit of context behind the award a little bit, and as you say, make it a bit more of a ceremony. I also just got to say, like, honestly, that was like the best weekend or day I've had of playing Warhammer in a crazy long time. Like, I really liked the format. I really liked the missions. I liked all the people there. It had a really nice vibe to it. And it was very similar to sort of like how it is at No Retreat to an extent. But yeah, just like really chilled, really good fun. Everyone like sociable with each other. And not having secondaries, I think, makes a big thing. Like, and we didn't even get to mention this. Like, I finished every single one of my games. I got to turn 5 every single time, and I don't know if it's because it was doing 1,750 points as opposed to 2,000 points, or the fact that we weren't having to worry about secondaries or overly complicated scoring mechanics. It was so nice and easy and chilled, and I managed to not have to rush any of my games, and that was really cool. Made it so much more enjoyable than any other game of 9th edition I've had.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was near perfect, I'd say, in terms of the people, the venue, the games, the armies. It was almost the perfect day of 40k gaming. Again, the only little things that I'm mentioning are what stand between it and that. I worry now about the second event. Can it live up to it? Can the second event be better than this? Because this was pretty good.
Exactly. Was it lightning in a bottle, or can they recreate it?
Exactly, and that's the thing, and the other thing that I'm interested in is what happens, because one of the things that Tom has already said is all the people who attended this event get first refusal on the next one, right? And that's cool, right? Like, because we can preserve a certain amount of the attitude. But I really hope that more is done to try and open up opportunities. Like maybe it becomes like 15 of the, or like 14 of the 24 tickets, assuming that's how many he does for the next one, or 26 or whatever it is. An amount of those can be reserved for people who did it the first time around for a period of time, but there is more effort made to make them more widely available, because I do think it's important that we try and inject new people into it. I don't want it just to turn into something we go to twice a year where all the same people turn up and it becomes another kind of weird, secret society job.
There's already something like that.
Yeah, exactly, right? There's already an event that does that, and they're very successful at it. But I would want to, if I had a say in it, which I don't, but that would be what I would be trying to encourage. Because I'm sure people will have listened to this and think, flipping heck, I'd love to go to the next one. Well, you can't, because everyone who went to the first one got all the tickets for the next one. So sorry, that just seems utterly prohibitive. So yeah. I again, that's for Tom to decide, but we really hope that people who've listened to this will take some inspiration from it and potentially seek to replicate these style of events elsewhere in the world, or seek to try this out for themselves when it comes back again in April, May time. He's targeting for his next one, isn't he? Amazing. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure recording with you again, and it was an absolute delight to spend a day in a hall of sweaty men flinging cubes with you in the freezing cold, which is a bit of a weird anomaly. It was warm inside the building, but freezing cold outside of it, obviously, weather. But no, genuinely, it was an experience, and thank you for being there to share it with me. It was a lovely time. But let's do some closing thoughts. Rich, what would you like to say to, wrap up your general sentiment towards this whole sequence of events?
I would just like to thank Tom and the Rapid Fire Wargaming guys for putting it on. Even though that sounds awfully corporate about it. No, but generally, it was such a great event. It was so nice to have to go there, play these don't want to bang on about it. Some more interesting missions that are more varied against some great armies. I'm just really glad it happened. I'm glad I went along because I nearly didn't once of the whole storm thing going on. I was like, do I want to go to Ashford, Kent, and get lost there in some kind of crazy storm? I thought, no, I'm going. I'm very glad I did. I had a great time, and whenever the next one is, I hope more people can go to it, and us as well.
Indeed, keep us there, but everyone else change. Tim.
I just want to say thanks to the guys for putting it on and looking after us. With the last minute changes, Tom did an amazing job as well. The hall was amazing, and I would highly recommend anyone just to check out the RFW guys. They've got a YouTube channel and a Facebook group, and just keep your eyes and ears peeled for the next event for whenever he posts it up.
Phil?
Oh God, I mean, you two have already pretty much said it all, really. Like, gushing of praise for the event and the organisers. They're top chaps. We've been sort of avid supporters and fans of them for a long time now. I sort of hope they do more. I'd love to see other types of events, like if they do more narrative crusade style stuff, more open war. Brilliant. And I thought what I'd love to see more from the community as a whole is to see a sort of shift in that general direction. I'm sure there are people putting on narrative events. I'd love to see people do more open war style games. They don't have to be ITC pointed, for example. Who cares? I just want to go and play some 40k, keep it casual, and just have fun and not have to, worry about, trying to win for the sake of it. Instead, just have fun and enjoy myself, which is what I had. And as I said a few minutes ago, absolutely like one of the best events I've ever been to. Really great time, just playing 40k with my friends and associates of them.
Thanks very much, guys. Yeah, no, it was amazing. It was a good time. It feels a little bit contrived to essentially wrap this up with that statement. But honestly, I think everyone has said as much as can be said on the topic, which is that it was remarkable, given this was Tom's first event, that this had the complications. I think it just added to the overall kind of spirit of the occasion. There was a good sense of community and collaboration and enthusiasm for getting together and throwing dice and playing games like we used to. I just, I can't really say anything other than it was great. So yeah, until the next one. But until then, transitional noise. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. The end of episode 114 of the Warhammer 40,000 podcast, known as Look Out, Sir, but you know better than that, which was me saying better than that, but I might have bungled that part of the sentence. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's the end of the show, but myself and Phil are going to just catch up in the general sense, see what's going on. How you doing, Phil? You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. I'm doing a project at the moment, a little bit top secret, but I can actually talk about it. So I signed up for, it's called Ho Ho Hobby Vices. Have you heard of this before?
I have not heard of the Ho Ho Hobby Vices, no.
It's-
Isn't Ho Ho a Pokemon?
I mean, it may well be. I think it's meant to be more like ho ho, as in the noise that Santa Claus makes.
Oh, I see. It's some kind of Christmas-themed extravaganza.
It is, yes. It's basically a Warhammer-themed / hobby-themed Secret Santa that goes on across the
All right.
world. So I think it is. I think it's been going on for, I think it's the 5th year now, and I've been vaguely aware about it, but this year I decided to sign up to it. Basically, once you've signed up, you get randomly allocated someone in your country or potentially somewhere around the world, but it does happen. Like, everyone partaking is across the globe. I think it's mostly like an Instagram type of thing, but it is for anyone to take part in. And you've got like a minimum sort of spend of £35 to gift to someone else in a Warhammer related way. When you sign up, you put in all your interests, say what kind of armies you're working on, what sort of things you would like, and then the other person that you're randomly allocated to gets that, so they can see what you'd like. So the idea is, at one point in time, come Christmas, everyone gets to open up these cool Warhammer gifts. I've seen some online from previous years where people will make like Inquisition scrolls that they've stained with tea, or someone's made, nice boxes, or, some people have just nicely wrapped up some Games Workshop products as well. So, people are encouraged to put in as much effort as they would like. So yeah, it sounds like a really cool project. So I've been, I finally made the plunge in terms of actually doing that.
So what are you creating?
Well, I'll talk about what I'm creating. I won't say who it's for, so no one will know.
No, of course, that much can't be said.
So you've seen it before. I made from They Were Cheap ages ago. I got one of their wooden invite boxes, and I stenciled on an inquisitorial seal design on the top, and then I did a wood stain effect on that. So I'm going to do a similar thing for this person. With a bespoke, their chapter of choice stenciled on top, and do a nice little wooden box for them, and then I'm going to give them some other suitable gifts alongside that. So I thought I would use that as an excuse to do some sort of hobby adjacent stuff. So obviously,
nice.
Making a little box and styling it up would be nice and fun. Not necessarily 40k related per se, but it will be themed to what they do, and be a nice little storage box for them, hopefully, in addition to some of the other stuff that I'm going to work on.
Very nice, mate. Very nice. I mean, it sounds really touching. I mean, it's cool that those kind of groupings and opportunities exist on the internet. It reminds me, in some weird way, shape or form, I can't remember what the actual name of it was back in the day, but when I started in university in the olden times, I signed up to some weird splash games conflict going on in and around the city where I went to university, that being Southampton. Yeah, it was very odd. So basically, you got given someone's details, and you had to effectively attack them with some kind of water pistol or a water balloon in a period of time. It was a mad old
Do
game.
you know what? Me and one of my mates tried to start a society up in Bradford University for, I think it was called something else, like Assassination or Assassins or something. There was a whole...
It could have been something like that, yeah.
A,
But I
a
think
similar game. It wasn't just water related, but you could make fake bombs, not real bomb, but like you would have a tissue box or something, and you'd open it up and it would have the word boom in it, and obviously you've then killed that person, and you would have these like targets to go for. Yeah,
that was the weird early years of the internet where you had no issue at all just giving someone your name, a picture of you, where you worked.
Loads of private data.
Yeah.
It was
And obviously you get something for the same, you get your mark and you'd be like, right, I've got to hunt this person down. You end up in like these ridiculous scenarios where you're like going to where they work and trying to find out where they are. Just being like, without being like really blatant, like just walking in, like, is so and so working today? Who are you? Oh, I'm here to attack them. But obviously, work and other places that you would outline were like your safe spots. You couldn't just, get them while they were, serving up some food in a restaurant or something. But yeah, that was a mad old time. But anyway, there you go. That sort of reminds me of that old nonsense, such as it was. But yeah, God, those were good times. It sounds lovely, mate. And hopefully, someone has just as thoughtful a gift waiting for you when the time comes. I've been gifting myself today by going on the internet and buying lots of lighting equipment to illuminate the set of our Big Fat Quiz of the Year, which isn't being called Big Fat Quiz of the Year anymore. I must remember that. It is now being called the 40K Quiz of the Year, I think is what we settled upon, wasn't it, Phil?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems about where we landed. But yeah, so that's something of a project that I am diving in headfirst into at the moment. So myself and my father are working on some set design pieces at the minute. Phil was nice enough to send me over some updated logo imagery that we'll be printing onto this really rudimentary set that we're building. And yeah, I'm just trying to lay it all out and put it all together. We're going to be filming at Factorum in what used to be the old Vanguard studio. Those guys have moved on now to a new studio location somewhere else. I believe they're expanding or doing something. I'm not entirely familiar with the details, but all I know was that Joe was like, you can use this room now. I was like, oh, isn't that lovely? So yeah, just doing things to try and just kind of brighten it up a bit and make it sort of pop a bit more. My big thing, and I know I kind of labor this point a lot when I talk about it, when we did it last time, I was really disappointed with the audio quality. And that's definitely been my number one priority, is investing in ensuring that the audio quality is of a higher benchmark. But then additionally, it's the whole production, right? Like the filming equipment we use is pretty bog standard because we don't have the budget to invest silly money into this kind of stuff. So, like we film it on some really basic like webcams that I bought one year on an Amazon, Black Friday when they were going for like 30 quid a cam or something. So I was like, oh, I'll buy 3 of them. And this will be the basis of how I film these things. And but hopefully with a bit of extra lighting and a bit of extra effort on the audio, I'm really hopeful that the overall kind of vibe will be pretty strong. And we're going for less of a Christmas feel on this one, aren't we, Phil? Because it's a New Year's thing. It's going to come out on New Year's Day. So it's less about the, yay, it's Christmas, and more about, way, it's 2022. What a time.
Oh, okay. I don't mind it being... I want to wear a Christmas jumper. That'll be...
You still can, mate. You still can. I mean, I might lean into that. It's just that because we were releasing it on New Year's Day, that's usually when all the Christmas stuff goes away, isn't it?
Well, no, normally it's a little bit later. little bit late.
All right, in which case, there we go. We're leaning into it. We're sticking with Christmas. It's still happening. There you
Christmas
go.
hats and all sorts. Yeah. I was going to say I enjoyed doing so not just like the logo, but like the kind of thumbnail artwork. I've putting in lots of little Easter eggs. It's now more of a treasure hunt of things from the year. So I think last year it was like, oh, what products? Or not last year, like 3 years ago now, was it when we did the last one?
2 years, 2019.
It was just like, well, oh, here's some products that have come out. That I'm going to stick on in a collage, but this year there's a lot more nuance to it and some interesting little Easter eggs, references to particular moments, things that have happened, controversies, all sorts really. So hopefully somehow I'll upload a standalone like high res version for people to look at and see if they can guess all the things that are going to be in there.
Yeah. Well, this is something and the sort of thing that we're really excited to, to start doing and, do more of. I mean, previously we'd obviously done a quiz in 2019 and the aspiration was to do it every year. But obviously it takes an amount of money to sort of finance those projects. It also takes a lot of time on the behalf of everyone who contributes to it. Obviously, you've got people like me who are going crazy building sets and doing things that hopefully I'll be able to reuse year on year. But the point is that, there's that aspect of it. But then there's people like yourself, Phil, obviously doing lots of artwork and creating that element of it. And then there's people like Richie, who's got to write the flipping thing. Like, I mean, he's got to put the whole quiz together. It's a real big project for everyone involved. And, this is the sort of stuff that we're really excited to do and able to do because of the support of like the patrons that we brought on over the last few months. And it's something that, as we move forwards, we'd love to add more of a kind of patron component to it and do more with it. So as we're able to kind of reward our patrons more. So maybe we'll be looking at doing this as like a live event sometime down the road, or I know Phil has his reservations to that. But the point is we want to try and, give back where we can to that incredible group of people that help enable us to do what we are doing here. So yeah, hopefully there'll be future instances where we can make this more meaningful for those who are supporting us, which is obviously hugely appreciated. But irrespective, I think, we're just doing it because it's a fun thing to do. It's a fun little project. It's like, weirdly, Phil, Christmas felt more Christmas to me in 2019 because I had this fun little Christmas themed thing that I needed to do. It's like, it reminded me of when I was a kid and I had to be in like the nativity play or whatever it was, when you were at like primary school and you had to put on some flipping performance and the whole year kind of built up around these varying awful childhood performances of insert school play that you had to do. That gave me a weird kind of contributing element to the kind of Christmassy vibe. And I felt the same with our Christmas quiz in 2019. I definitely would have preferred not to have had to have smashed out the edit in the time that I did it the last time around. But other than that, it definitely gave me a general warm, fuzzy vibe. So yeah, I'm really hopeful that that this goes well. But at the same time, it's low pressure because we're not doing it for any profit or anything particular. We just want to put it out there and see how people get on with it. Unfortunately for us, Phil, the dislike button's disabled on YouTube now. So all those disgruntled people who click on it expecting it to be legitimate, big fat quiz of the year content won't be able to, to ruin our algorithms.
I thought the dislike button was still there, but you just don't see how many people have disliked it.
Correct, yes. Yeah, which is all that's important.
Oh, okay.
You need not know how many people disliked it. You only get to see how many people like it. So there you go. We won't have the perception of our video damaged by people legitimately thinking that they're going to see that guy from Peep Show or Noel what's his face from Mighty Boosh.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. They click on our thumbnail thinking, oh, I'm going to see so and so do a little witticism about insert a jumper or something. I don't know what these comedians talk about anymore, but it always seems to come back to something obscure. The point is that they were hoping for that, and what they got was our silly faces talking about stuff they didn't understand, nor did they want to see, I assume. So yeah. So I'm going to go mad on the tags. Screw it. I'm just going to turn those comments off, smother it in Channel 4 related tags. But yeah, anyway, so that's an exciting project. And then, yeah, we got the doubles coming up in January. So I'm working on some Black Templar minis at the moment, which is exciting as well. Gorgeous models, right? Like, I mean, again, the Black Templar minis are a Primaris armor set that is of a scale and sort of stature that is, again, different from what's been established with other Primaris Marines. You only really begin to appreciate and understand this as you start putting them together. They're much more slight, sloot, a little bit thin. They've got more of a sort of smaller profile to them. They've got, because they're all in these kind of like poses where they're sort of like, you know, legs are crossing over each other, and there's one or two with like wide stances, but for some reason they feel like they stand a little taller, that they're a little bit more, you know, a little bit more sort of slender,
Lean.
a little less bulky. Lean, that's the word. Yeah, there we go. Like you, Phil.
Exactly. So lean.
So lean. But anyway, yeah, it's really awesome putting those things together. I'm excited to break out the airbrush and start putting some nice bits of Xenofold highlights and things on them, and trying out some of those techniques that I've been reading up on and you know, watching videos on over the last month or so. So I'm really building up the enthusiasm for trying to get this black color scheme down and making a really pretty army. I'm going to start experimenting with oil washes, Phil.
Nice.
Can you believe it? Getting on that train.
Get yourself, I'm sure I talked about it last week, right? The streaking effects by Ammo by MiG. That's what I used for my Black Templars test mini. Basically black all over with that, and then scrub most of it off, and you've got a nice little kind of brown contrast in all the recesses, which is really good.
Yeah. See, I'm not sure whether I want to go for that kind of grim dark kind of brownish black that they've kind of established there, although I do like the idea of like the shoulder pads using like pallid witch flesh with like Agrax style
that'd be really good to give it a real dirty vibe. I mean, so what was it on Warhammer Plus? They did that how to paint black armor, and that's with much more like was it Incubi blue, like really crisp but like blue edge highlighting, which I do want to try at some point because it looks really nice. In fact, the one test miniature that I've got left, because I did 3 originally. I did a Minotaurs one, a Black Templars one, and a Death Watch one. So the Death Watch one is the only one I've got left to do, and that was always going to be much more crisp, clean black, as opposed to the Black Templars sort of gritty kind of black.
Yeah, no, it's going to be good to experiment with that and try and see what I can kind of do with it. Noting that for like the standard like line troopers, I'm not going to really go to town doing like loads of highlights or being too over the top. I think I'll just try and reserve that for certain characters. This weekend when we're up at Warhammer World, I'm going to pick up the Sigismund model because I want Sigismund to be leading my forces. I also need to pick up a squad of assault terminators. I bought the Black Templar Forge World shoulder pads, although not the actual Black Templar bit of them, because that is absurdly priced. Just the Crux Terminatus.
Okay.
Because they did like a specific range of Forge World Crux Terminatus shoulder pads, and they have more of that kind of. I'm trying to think of the artist now, but it was that more kind of edgy, kind of like metallic style skulls that you used to see in some of the more kind of like angular artworks of old 40k. You know, like where it's like a grimacing kind of like skull design that's got more of a kind of pointy, jaggedy features. I don't know if any of this is ringing a bell with you.
I've got some ideas, but I don't know if my ideas are the complete opposite of what you're thinking in your head.
Irrespective, it's definitely a more pronounced, more sort of stylized skull design on the Crux Terminatus, and it's more accentuated, whereas the normal kind of Crux Terminatus is kind of this kind of mesh of kind of like relatively unpronounced detail because of the old plastic sculpts that these Terminators have. These are obviously much more finessed Forge World style ones with just a little bit more going on, and they just sort of fit the aesthetic of Black Templars a bit better, in my opinion. So yeah, that's what I'm going for. So yeah, I'm really hopeful that I can get this done in time for the end of January. Hopefully with these airbrushing techniques, it will definitely make that easier. I've got a land raider that I need to deal with as well. So it's a small little condensed force. I mean, all told, it is 15, 16, 17, 18 models. So
is it the Unnumbered Suns Challenge 2.0?
essentially, yeah, except this time I really do need to succeed because I'm going to Warhammer World and they are and you know, Joe and myself are obviously doing it in a doubles format, so I need to try and do the thing. But although I don't know why I'm worried about it because Joe just won't turn up anyway.
Yeah, you might have to replace him with a small Funko Pop like Richard did one year.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, if Joe doesn't turn up, I'll just withdraw from the weekend and be really sour at him. That's basically how that's going to go.
Oh, would you not go on your own and just...
No. It would just be embarrassing. I'm not going on my own. Although maybe I could recruit a random listener.
Maybe. Well, that's
just
true.
make a friend.
Yeah.
Who wants to go to the doubles with me?
Maybe I could...
Maybe we could do that as a social contest. We could literally just do a who wants to be first reserve for Joe.
Well, that's true. Yeah. I mean, I've talked with Toke a while ago about it'd be great if he could come over to do doubles so we could do double Krieg. So we've always liked that.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if he could come back so soon after.
So you're trying to steal my doubles partner now? Is what
Well,
you're
I'm saying you could have Richard and I could have Toke if Toke was able to come over, which seems unlikely, but you never know.
You don't want double Krieg. You want Krieg and Black Templars.
Oh, okay. No, I see.
That could still be you. Toke could go with Rich.
Who would Richie play with?
Toke.
I guess so.
That's not how it works, Dad. That's not the rules.
I want to play with Toke.
Well, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. You've made your feelings entirely
I have to
clear.
say, so on the Sunday, so the day after our RFW event, I was still in the area, as was Toke and Michael. So we did a quick three-way game in the morning, 1,000 points each, which was good fun. And we just took, it was 1,000 points each. So we just paired down with basically what we'd taken to the event the day before. So that was good fun, like just a little bit of a mad game. Unfortunately, I didn't have the Crusade rule pack that had the multiplayer rules in, so I just sort of vaguely remembered some of those rules, and we just sort of, we basically did kill points plus who had the most objectives. Oh no, we scored. It was just objectives at the end of turn scoring. That was it. However many you were on, you scored, and then however many you killed of the other two people, you got that, as well as our point system, which is sort of simple and seemed relatively fair and balanced depending on what point you're getting. And then we randomly rolled off for like we randomly rolled off to determine who placed objectives. We placed objectives not knowing where the deployment zones were. Then we randomly decided where the objectives. Randomly decided where the deployment zones were, or where we were within those deployment zones, because we split the table up into quarters diagonally, and then every turn we rolled off to determine who went first as well. So I kept it fresh.
Sounds interesting, mate. A good time. You had a little tickle before they went back to. I think Toke was saying that they're going to get locked down as of today again because of Omicron, Persei 8.
Quite likely, yeah. I mean, yeah, it seemed like I had a good time. They seem to really enjoy traveling abroad to do Warhammer, and I think their scene in Denmark's very different to what we have in the UK. So I think they find that quite refreshing.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. No, I'm glad they've come over and enjoyed it, and hopefully they'll, won't be too long before we see them again. So that'll be exciting. But there you go. A lovely episode. We didn't end up talking about the multiplayer game beyond what you just said there. We'll get around to it in future episodes. We feel like that's enough for this week. You got to hear about our experiences at a tournament. You know what I'd like to do next week, Phil? Can I pitch a content idea to you here and now?
Okay, I've already got an idea as well.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Well, we're not going to have enough time to do like a vote system on it to determine which one we do. Or maybe we might. I don't know.
We've got a few days.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, then let's do it. Let's pitch it. Here it is. My pitch is, it's been over a year now and a lot has changed. I feel that we need to revisit, you know what?
I do.
The top 10 Space Marine chapters. I think it is worthwhile now that we take a refreshed look. We've had a load of changes and things occur in the wondrous world of competitive 40k and just general 40k. And I think it is about time that we reevaluate the lay of the land, what with the Black Templars release and all the rest of it. Maybe get Joe back on, given the fact that he was a contributor back then to that episode, and do a top 10 recap. Or we could mix up the format. I quite like what we did when we talked through top 10 or top 7, top 8, whatever it was that we were talking about. I don't even remember. What it was
for ideas for improving the tournament scene.
Yes. Yeah, so we each have our top 10s, and we compare and contrast notes.
No, I like that.
Like that could be a fun way of doing it. Anyway, that's my idea. What you got?
Well,
Phil?
my idea is to talk about Crusade multiplayer, because 1, we didn't talk about this week, but 2, more importantly, this weekend we're all going up to Warhammer World. Day 1 on Saturday, we've got the Jamigan board, which is the big. There's like a massive bridge, big old, really old table that they've got there. So we're forced to do a multiplayer game between the 5 of us. So it's Yumi, Richie, Tim, Sean, who lives up in Nottingham, who we occasionally mention on the show but hasn't yet appeared. Joe was meant to come, but unfortunately he's had to cancel, so he won't be able to join us. So there's a 5 of us, so we're going to have to do a multiplayer game. So it makes perfect sense that on the Saturday, do the multiplayer game, and then we can review the rules for the multiplayer, as well as talk about our experience having just done it.
I mean, we could just do the 2 things in one.
What if there's time? I think the top 10 could just be a thing on its own, though. I definitely think we should do it.
I agree. I mean, all right. Well, let's see which one we're going to do first. Let's let the people decide via.
Should we do it? Yes, we can either do it combined or just do it on Instagram. That's the easiest one.
And then if it is that we do the Space Marine thing, right? If it is that people ask for that, we could then do polls and people could vote for their own, and we could take an audience participation.
We could do.
What does the audience think is the number 1 Space Marine?
That's true. We should also ask, not forgetting them, our Patreon supporters. We should because we can do polls quite easily on there as well.
Beautiful. There you go. Look at this. It's all happening. So there we are. We're going to do all those things when we get around to doing it. If we get around to doing it first, that's for you, the audience, to decide. Not that I'm trying to weight your opinions. I mean, Phil looks after the social media, so he'll lean it towards.
I will wait the question to my advantage.
Exactly.
It's like,
do you want to hear about the multiplayer system, or do you not want to hear about Space Marines?
Yes, exactly. That's how it works.
You crafty booker. All right, brilliant. Well, look, mate, thank you so much as always for joining me on this exciting journey through the wondrous world of 40k. It is a pleasure as always. Thank you to Richie. Thank you to Tim. Thank you again to the good people of Rapid Fire for putting us up this weekend at the Rapid Fire Wargaming event. Not that they gave us any kind of special treatment. I'm just saying in the general sense, it was a very lovely day, and they did a good job as we've kind of laboured up to this point. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that needs saying, Phil. So unless you have anything else to add, I'm going to say goodbye. What do you reckon?
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.